And hello again, everybody, and welcome to the Curious Minds podcast. This is episode 4, entitled Yearning to Breathe Free. And those words are taken, we'll talk about that here in a minute, but taken from the Statue of Liberty. And I'm choosing today to interview Fernando Giraldo. So, Fernando, thank you very much for coming in. Fernando is a fellow teacher, and he immigrated to the United States from Colombia, South America, and I just thought today's topic would be a great, with all the things going on in the world, and right now in the United States, people coming into our country and seeking asylum and refuge from things in their country. And, you know, we have a lot of information, but yet very few of us have ever really sat down and talked to somebody who's gone through the process. So I really thought it'd be interesting to interview Fernando to talk about, like, what his process was like. And although it was a while ago, it's still something that's, you know, very fresh and important to you. So, and Fernando, for those of you that, if you haven't checked out any of the other Curious Minds podcasts, there are 3 up already that preceded this one. So please take an opportunity and go back and see it. We started off with one about the Second Amendment, and then we did one on librarians, and then one on knitting. And so now we're moving on to a different topic again, as we always try to do. And this one is all about immigration, at least from one person's point of view. So Fernando, welcome. Thank you for doing this with me. We're after school here, so energy levels are low after a day of teaching, but Fernando's been teaching here at the same school as me for about 10 years.
10 years, that's right.
So, and did you teach before that in the county?
No, I mean, other than my student teaching, it's only been my first school. So
Gotcha.
It's never been anywhere
So
else.
Student taught, and then you subbed here
I
first,
I
right?
actually
Or long-term sub.
I did a long-term sub somewhere else. And then I just subbed for the county for a whole year until I got the job here.
Yeah, here at Neilsville.
Yep.
And I say this, my co-host on the other podcast that I do, the White Chocolate podcast, Will, and you kind of saved me here because I had been here a long time and things were kind of, you know, it just kind of wears on you. Mm-hmm. And you guys came in and you're a lot younger than me, and you had the energy and the sense of humor. And so since then, and to be honest, as it relates to today's podcast, one of the things that we do often in our daily lives is tease each other about our differences.
I mean, that's the only way to survive.
Exactly. So and I thought, man, you know what a great, I mean, this sounds like I'm patting myself and you on the back, but what a great example of how we can, show people how we can joke about things and be okay with it. And we've always been like that. And we've talked about everything. So anyway, you are a PE teacher. You're married. You have 4 sons, all under the age of 10 or 11? 10.
Yeah.
So you're very busy right now.
Super busy.
Thank you for taking time
No
to do this. Your wife was a Spanish teacher.
She was.
And now she stays home with the 4 bambinos.
Yeah, you know, she was a teacher for 14 years.
Yeah. And she taught Spanish, oddly enough.
Yes, and she never really enjoyed teaching as much. But it got to a point where, like, you know, having 4 kids and like daycare just became way too expensive.
She taught at a private school.
She did,
which in our area doesn't pay quite as much as the public schools do.
Yeah.
So she wasn't earning what she would have earned in the public school sector.
Not, yeah.
And so it was like, okay, we'll give up that salary for the benefit of.
It was a hard decision for sure.
Yeah. Well, it's a lot of it's a lot of income to give up.
That's true.
I know when our kids were born, my wife chose to stay home, or we discussed it and decided together, but. And it was giving up roughly, I'd say, 1/3 of our income. And so probably a little bit more for you guys. But anyway, so she stays home now, and you guys were able to get a home not that long ago, which was nice, out of the town, more in the country. And,
yes, definitely.
And it's older, but luckily you have a lot of, here we'll start with our first stereotype. You have a lot of experience doing different types of construction jobs and plumbing and so you've been around build sites, so you're able to do a lot of the work yourself.
So, well, as you know, I graduated from high school and I needed a job, and my dad was working at a plumbing company, so he's like, hey, you can come work with us,
right?
So I did plumbing for 6 years, and I'm telling you, I learned a lot.
Yeah,
And
of what to do and what not to do.
I mean, exactly. And I up until now, I still remember a lot of the things. I do the things myself. I mean, there are certain things that have been upgraded, and then you can't keep up anymore. But like
Yeah,
you have to hire like somebody else to help you. But I did. It was worth it. Like I never thought I was gonna stay there because I wanted to be a teacher at some point.
yeah,
I wanted to go to school. Maybe back then I didn't really know where I was gonna go,
right.
or what I wanted to
But
do.
but you kind of knew it wasn't going to be that the rest of your
Yeah, I
life.
didn't think so because I
Yeah,
was in college, so I was like, I'm working during the day, I'm
yeah.
going to school at night. I knew that I wanted to do something else.
Do something
Yeah.
different. And so, with your young kids and you're teaching and you're commuting a little bit further now that you bought a house. But I wanted to start just by, let's go all the way back, kind of do this chronologically. And as I was preparing for today and kind of thinking of questions that I wanted to ask, and some of these things you and I have probably discussed, but a lot of things I'm going to ask you today, I might not even know the answers to. So some I do, but we're going to go through it for the purposes of the audience. So I was thinking about the Statue of Liberty, and it's like I was trying to come up with a title, and the quote that's on the Statue of Liberty came to my mind. They give me, "You're tired, you're poor, you're huddled masses yearning to breathe free, wretched refuse of your teeming shore." So we're talking about, you hear the first part a lot, "You're tired, you're poor, you're huddled masses." But I was surprised it said wretched refuse. Like refuse is trash. Wretched means like, the worst. So the worst trash of your teeming shore. And I was just thinking, what a weird way. I'm surprised nobody's objected to that language on the
Yeah,
Statue
and
of
it's
Liberty.
been a while now. Huh?
But the whole idea was, it's America. We want anybody that wants to come here. And you think about all the arguments that go on in politics today, and we'll get to that later. And you realize all the people that are flooding to the United States, and we are lucky enough to teach, or I consider it lucky enough to teach in a school where we have kids from like 40 different countries around the world, and it's like you see a lot of kids whose family members came to the United States for one reason or another. So today I'm hoping to at least get like one man's story about, why you think, and I'm not, to be clear, I know I can't ask you to speak for every immigrant that comes to the United States, or not even every Hispanic immigrant that comes to the United States, but I just thought it would be a good start to help educate people. So we mentioned you're from Colombia. We joke here because sometimes we'll say, "Oh, Mexico, same thing, right?"
It's all the same thing.
All the same thing, but we tease you. You're, and one of our coworkers will say, "You're Spanish, right?"
Yep.
Well, you speak Spanish, therefore you're Spanish.
Yeah.
But technically, Spanish would be from Spain.
Exactly.
And you're not from Spain, so you're not Spanish.
Nope.
You are Hispanic or
Hispanic.
Latino.
Or Latino. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And just off the cuff, the Latinx that we talked about, where do you stand on that? Because I know that's kind of like, we're supposed to be being more polite by saying Latinx, or I don't even know how to pronounce it. But
I mean,
but you're sorry.
honestly, I just think that I like Latino better,
Okay.
and I know it's because some of the changes that have been happening in our society, that
Right.
things change over time. But like, I mean, I think I like Latino better than Latinx.
Well, and isn't the Hispanic, isn't Spanish generally, I don't know what the right word is. I don't know if it's conjugated is the right word, but isn't Spanish littered with differences in words based on masculine and feminine, right?
Yes.
So Latino is a male, Latina
Yeah.
is a female.
Correct.
So is the idea behind like the Latin X thing that it takes away that male female distinction?
Yeah.
So it sort of generalizes everybody?
Yeah. That's basically
Okay.
what it is. Yeah.
But there's still, like in your entire language, there's still el and la when you're addressing. So like a masculine thing, I don't know, el toro for a bull, but it's not la toro because
No.
it's. So what would you do with, I'm asking, I don't know if you know, what do people that want to take away that male female distinction say we do about toro? Like, I don't even know. Is there a solution to that, or is it still el? That's the masculine.
I mean, in Spanish I mean, I haven't really had that much interaction with with somebody who wanted to be called differently.
Gotcha.
Than other than like I said, la
Right.
vaca o el toro,
Yeah. And what was that in Spanish?
and the cow or
The cow or the bull. Okay.
Yeah.
So La is for cow and L is for bull.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because presumably cow, well, I guess cows can be male too, but yeah, the
Yeah.
bull. Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was just curious because you hear it now and it just popped into my head, like, differences in language and difference. Do you think most people that you know that are Hispanic or Latina, are the people that you know, are they mostly in that same camp? And is it a tradition thing? Like we just like it that way because that's the way it's always been?
That's a good question. I mean, I'm not sure. Probably, I think that it depends on like the generation. I
Okay.
think that the
Older
older you
generation.
are, I think the more they stick to the traditional
Gotcha.
Latino, and the new generation, kind of adapts to a
Yeah.
new term,
You
Latinx.
you don't hear it a lot. We're not hearing
Not
Latinx a
really.
lot.
I don't hear
So
it very
I don't know
much.
if it's dying off already, but it was something that when we read a book a couple years ago here at school that they asked us to read,
Right.
and it was big in there, and that's when it was kind of at its height. But I don't feel like I've heard it much anymore.
Me
I feel like
neither.
it's dying off.
Yeah.
So anyway, so from Colombia, I'll probably never travel there in my lifetime, just like most places in the world.
You
What's
should.
it like? I know
Um,
what is the country like, first of all, and then we'll specific like where you grew up. But
Okay. I mean, it's a very diverse country. I mean, we have, I think it's the only country in South America that has the Atlantic Ocean and the Pacific Ocean.
okay,
Um, and there's a lot of beautiful sceneries. We have the you can go to the beach, either the Pacific or the Atlantic.
how far across is it from one coast to the other?
Ooh,
Like if you were
that's-
driving.
I never did it myself.
Yeah, I mean, are we talking like three? I mean, because the United States has both, but
Oh,
you're
yeah,
talking
I
a
know,
5-day
but-
drive. Like, could you do it in a day's drive?
Oh no, definitely not a day.
Okay,
I never, like I said, I never done it myself,
Okay.
but I'm pretty sure it'll take a few days.
Is Colombia one of the? I should have done some of this research, but are they one of the larger countries in South America?
They're more
Besides
like
Brazil?
they're more like in the middle. I think they're like
Okay.
the fourth or fifth country.
Okay.
It's usually like Brazil and
And some of them are very long. Like, is it Peru or Chile?
Peru is
Very
bigger
long.
than
Yeah.
Colombia.
Chile is narrow, but it's
and-
long.
yeah.
So, okay.
So I think we might be the third. What
And
am
the-
I missing?
And the capital is
Bogota.
Bogota.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Mhm.
And how far is Bogota a city like you'd see like a New York City? Is it
Yeah, it's pretty big. So I actually never really I never really
okay?
go to Bogota as
That's
much.
okay. There's a lot of people in the United
but-
States that have never been to Washington
know.
D.C.
But it was before I married my wife, we went to Cartagena in Colombia, and we stopped at Bogota, and you can see the city from like when the plane is landing. You
Yeah.
can see the city, and it looks huge. Like,
Yeah.
And it's a large city, but I've never been there. But I mean, plane from where I was from, I think it was about like I think it's only like a couple hours, 2.5 hours.
So maybe like from D.C. to Florida
Yeah.
in the United States, a couple
Yeah,
hours.
it's not terrible. If you drive, it's like 16 hours.
And Colombia mountainous? Does it have
Oh,
all
yeah.
the different?
Yeah,
all the
definitely.
different. Does it have plains and flatlands?
Yes,
and
we have deserts.
Okay.
We have a little bit of everything. We have part of the rainforest as well.
Okay.
More like in the Amazon
Mhm.
area, which kind of borders with Brazil and a few other South American countries. It's a very diverse country. I mean, it's a big country. I mean, I wasn't able to see everything. Plus,
Right.
we didn't have the capability of
Correct,
traveling
travel.
all of it.
Yeah.
We didn't have that kind of money.
So I think a lot of times people, and I'll put myself into this category. I think a lot of times when people think about countries in Central and South America, a lot of times people have these, misconceptions based on movies and things like
Yes.
that. But I mean, is it a safe place to be in places? Is it safe for you? And then is it safe for a guy like me?
Yeah, I mean, I think that if you do your research,
Just
and
like any place.
yeah, I mean, if you think about it, there are certain places in DC that if you go by yourself, you're gonna
Correct.
be in trouble.
Correct.
It's the same thing over there. I mean, if you
Okay.
go to the places where it's more, visited like tourists,
Mhm.
or it's fine.
Yeah.
It'll be fine. It's more
Even
like,
as someone who doesn't fit in.
yeah,
Okay.
definitely,
Yeah.
definitely. I mean,
Are there a lot of white people or other? Let me ask it this way: around where we are here, it's very diverse because a lot of people settle in the D.C. area from other countries. Is there, like in the town where you grew up, for example, did you see a lot of people that were not Colombian or not really?
not Colombian. When I lived there, not as often. I mean, I
Okay.
was there until I was 15. So,
Yeah.
at that age, I think I'm not, I don't know if I
Remember?
was aware
Yeah.
of my surroundings.
Gotcha. Well, when
But
you go back, you've been back. Like,
so, I mean, I think we get a lot more people. We had some a Japanese community because they like to bring like business, and they run business. There was an electronic place.
gotcha.
We also nowadays, I think there's a lot of people from Venezuela and Colombia because of what they're going through right now. Um, but yeah, I mean, you see some people from Ecuador here and there, but right now,
Yeah.
since I mean I haven't been there in a while, but I know there's a lot of Venezuelans
And
there.
where did you come from? What city?
So,
Where did you come from? That sounded very accusatory. But what was the city where you were from, and what was it
so
like there? Or
it,
was it country? Was it rural?
no, I
Or
mean it was a little bit of everything. I mean, it
okay,
depends on where you lived.
okay,
It was his name was Cali. So it's funny because I had when I came to the U.S. I had a shirt that said something about Cali, like I don't remember what it was.
somebody thought it was
And
California.
somebody said, "Is it
Yeah.
California?" I was like, "Not
No,
quite."
is it spelled the same CALI?
CALI, correct.
Okay,
And so, it's the third. I think it might be the second now largest city in Colombia after
okay.
Bogota.
So it was definitely urban.
Yes.
Okay,
So, I mean, I grew up in the suburbs of the city, and it was one of the probably at some point it was probably the second most dangerous city in Cali.
okay,
There was a lot of stuff going on back then.
gotcha.
And plus, it was in the 90s. Was worse when we
Now,
have the.
without a ton of stuff, educate me. What was going on in the country? Are you
Well,
talking about like drug lords, drug gangs
correct.
running the government,
Yes.
kind of a thing? Okay,
Yeah, which created a whole conflict, and the whole. I mean, there were different cartels, but the one that basically was the more predominant was the Medellin cartel, which um, is a different city in Colombia, and Cali had a cartel itself, a different group,
Mm.
and it was there were times where we found ourselves like, hey, just get under the bed.
Okay.
Yeah, we were near windows, so we had to make sure we were under the bed because
So you would hear things going
oh
down in
yeah,
the street.
we had to. We didn't have a choice. We were in the middle of it sometimes.
Firearm usage?
Yeah.
Okay.
Usually gangs against other
Okay.
gangs. They come and
Gotcha. Turf wars.
yeah,
and-
it was growing up was there were some times where it was a little tough.
You
yeah.
remember that at what age? Like 6, 7, 8, 10?
Um,
You left when you were 15,
I was
to be
15,
clear.
but it was probably when I was around like 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 until 10
Yeah.
to 14. Yeah.
And how are the police? Like, are they effective? Were they effective then?
Not really. I mean,
Are they, as a lot of
It-
people think, on the take often, or were they then?
it's it is a third world country. It's hard to find. Not that there is not, but there is some. But most of them are corrupted, and
Gotcha.
they don't make enough money, so they're like,
Yeah, why not take?
why not? I'll
yeah.
take that. Sure, I'll let you go.
Yeah.
As long as you give me this,
Yeah.
like. Um,
Were you ever in a position where you were, like I know gangs here recruit people like, hey, you're going to come join this gang or we're going to do something to your family? Or did that hit that close to your family or no? Like, did you ever feel pressured as a young teen?
Yes and no, I would say. So I had older brothers, and plus my dad, and they were very aware of what I was doing, and if I went out, if they saw me, hanging out with the wrong people, they'll be like, hey, you need to either
Yeah.
go home or.
Were you aware or were you a little naive at that point? Or did you kind of know, but you just thought, oh, I'll resist. I'm not going to go down the same road. Did you ever seriously consider it? Did you ever look at it and go, hey, this looks like a pretty nice, lifestyle. They get a lot of money, and they like. What is that ever glamorous to you as a teenager?
I mean, it was. It might have been. I saw. I don't think it was really offered to me, like anything, drugs.
Do you think your brothers had any? Like, I'm picturing your brothers telling those guys, "Hey, you leave Geraldo alone. You leave my brother alone."
Yeah. I mean,
do you think they looked out for you in that way?
Yeah, definitely.
Or even your dad?
It's because we were. I think my parents were basically there from the beginning of that.
Gotcha.
That neighborhood, and they were kind of like pioneers. So that my family was known.
Gotcha.
Like all my brothers, they knew. I mean, they played soccer when they were kids, and the new generation knew my family as well. So,
and while you mentioned it, it's your mom and your dad. I know you have at least one sister. How many kids were there?
We were. So it's three older brothers. They're older than me.
Okay.
I'm the baby.
Yeah. What about your sister? Is she older?
She's the oldest.
Yeah. Oh, she's the oldest.
She's the oldest.
So sister, and then three
brothers
4 boys
in between. Okay. And then, so 4 brothers. And
so you had plenty of people in the neighborhood looking out for you.
Yeah, definitely.
And they knew more than you, and probably as much or more than your parents about who you needed to be with and who you didn't want.
Yes, I mean, and like I think like every teenager, at some point I became a rebel and. Hey, Dad, I want to go out. I said, okay. Yeah. He said, no, okay. And I would just still leave. Yeah.
And we've talked a little bit about that, too. Like, it was, you lived in sort of a heavy-handed household. Your dad was a strict disciplinarian. We've shared a little bit of that. Did you push back in school, or were you good in school? It's okay. I mean,
that's a good question.
Don't show your kids till they're older.
I think they already know. Okay. Sort of.
Did you like school? Did you get good grades? Was it hard for you? Did you not care?
It was hard at the beginning.
Okay.
And
what age do you start school? Sorry, I keep interrupting. In Colombia,
I started when I was probably like 5 or 6.
So about the same as the United States. Yeah. Okay.
But I was kind of like a little troublemaker.
Okay.
And
Geraldito.
Oh yeah, and I did so many things that would make me just as a kid,
Right. Yeah. We all did, but you might have been a little bit. You might a little bit.
Yeah,
more motivated.
I know. So up until I was, when I was in kindergarten, and I was kicked out of many schools because the teachers would say, "I'm sorry, Miss." My mom was Eloisa. She's like, "Sorry, I just can't handle him anymore. We can't have him here anymore."
And the teachers could do that there. They could just say he's not allowed back.
Yeah, because even though we were paying for it, I think my parents were paying for it.
Public school not free, or
no, it's not free. I mean, we had to pay.
Is that why? I'm sorry, my brain's going 1,000 directions. Is that why so many people don't get to take advantage of education in other countries? Because if you don't have the money, your kid doesn't go to school.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of parents don't really see the importance of sending their kids to school
because they might be tradesmen
or they know the importance, but they don't have the income.
Yeah. What did your mom and dad do in Colombia?
I mean, I don't think my parents were super strict about it. Like none of my brothers.
I meant for a career. I'm sorry. What did they do for a job when you were in Colombia? Did your mom work?
My mom worked basically just as a maid for people.
For people that could afford a maid.
Yes. Yeah.
And what did your dad do?
My dad started as he was like a bicycle mechanic, and then at some point he was pretty smart guy. My mom too, but he was a motorcycle mechanic, and he actually had his own business at some point. It wasn't super like great,
right?
But
he kind of could do whatever he could do there.
There were some days that he would come home with no money,
right?
So there were days that were tough, like we didn't have much to eat.
Yeah. What was your home like? I mean, you see sometimes in third world countries a dirt floor and a tin roof. Was it?
Yeah, that's how mine was.
Was it really?
Yeah.
Okay.
So it was a dirt floor, and I mean, when my brothers grew up, I don't think they had much. Like we had dirt floor, and then the walls were made out of like bamboo sticks, and the ceiling was actually, whatever you can find, like the roof,
Yeah, pieces of
pieces
scrap
of
tin or
whatever.
yeah.
Yeah, metal things, something that was waterproof. So
It's it's
and it was still a leak.
it's literally
It
what you
was still had
see like
leaks.
on TV or when people
Yep.
go into these
Yeah.
countries. And that was in the city. So
Yeah.
it's like you think of the poor areas as being out
Yeah.
from the city, but
Yeah. I mean,
but
and at some point, like I don't remember because I think I was young, but at some point there was a flood, and my parents had to apparently create like a walkway, so they walk over the water because there was
so
water
the
in
water
there.
would be in the house.
Actually, there's a river that is not that far away from us, like probably a mile and a half. Actually,
Yeah.
maybe less than a mile.
Now,
So,
electricity in the house, running water other than the floor.
I mean,
I'm not trying to
we
make fun,
no,
but
that's fine.
I mean, did you have an indoor toilet? Did you shower,
We
bath, that
had
kind
a
of stuff?
toilet, but we had to get a bucket, fill it up with
Okay.
water, and then just flush it.
So no
So
running,
it would flush.
so no running water, but it
No running water.
drained.
It
Okay.
drained. It drained. We just had to get a bucket the good old fashioned way.
Yeah.
And even taking showers too, it was more like, all right, fill up your
Your
bucket of water, and then get a
Do
container
like a
and
sponge
just
bath.
yeah.
We have some students here who I talked to that were from Nigeria who
Mhm.
said it was three sisters that we used to have here. I don't know. I mean, I'll mention what the story that they told me, but they said they were used to showering together because it conserved water, and they would get a 5-gallon bucket and literally
Yeah.
dump water. And
Yeah.
I mean, it was just a community event because it saved
Yeah.
water.
And I'm pretty sure, yeah. I mean, we had we sometimes we didn't have water, even when they put water like the pipe in our house.
Mhm. Like the pressure wouldn't be
The
there.
pressure wouldn't be there, so they would send like water trucks, and people in the whole neighborhood would just line up with buckets and just get water.
It's crazy. Could you cook? Like, did you cook in your home? Did you?
Yeah, yeah.
mean,
I mean,
What would you use to cook? I mean, they
just
gas or electric or
just
like a stove or
we had a
range?
stove.
Okay.
Yeah, we had a stove. Just a
Electric?
small stove, electric.
Electric stove.
Yeah.
Okay.
Um,
Lights? I mean, electric lights and stuff at night?
Yeah.
Does it
Yeah,
ever
at
get
some point we did. Yeah.
Does it ever get cold enough there to need heat or air? I mean, you didn't have air conditioning, I assume.
No,
Yeah.
not at all.
Does it ever get cold enough there to need?
Sometimes it does.
Okay.
Yeah, and not where I was from, because Cali is a very like kind of like humid place.
Okay.
And so it's not super. But sometimes we do have a winter, I guess. But we get a lot of rain, and some nights can be cold.
Yeah.
But and you sleep really well those nights.
Yeah, I bet.
Because it's usually really hard to sleep there. I mean, I remember not being able to sleep because of the humidity. It was just like you're lying down there and you're sweating while you're sleeping. So
Well, yeah, I wouldn't be good there. I hate being hot when I sleep.
oh, I like the heat, but that I
That-
didn't like.
Yeah, well, humidity is different than heat.
Oh,
so
I agree.
for
yeah.
sure. What do you think are some misconceptions that people have about Colombia? Like, because that's honestly like some of the things, or about anybody that comes to the United States from South America, like what you just described. Honestly, surprised me a little. We've never gotten that in depth
Yeah.
about where you grew up.
Mhm.
I know you said there was a place not far away from where you lived where you guys would play soccer. Football.
Football. That's
Football. And you had to cross. Would you describe that? Let's say you had to cross like this waterway or something to get to a field.
right. It
or-
was basically it was like a sewer. I mean, there was water
Gotcha.
running down from all the houses there, so we had to cross that.
And was it actually sewer water or like drain
Yeah,
water?
man, it was
okay.
black water.
Okay.
It was gross.
Okay.
And sometimes when it was really hot, you could
you smell.
the smell. Oh my gosh!
And it's just in an open trench running
Yes.
right by. How far from your house?
Like probably like 50 feet away.
Oh, so
It was
not,
right there.
not far.
No. It
And is that right
further
through
away.
the middle of the city, or is that on the edge of town?
It kind of runs along
The
a few
edge?
miles.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then on the other side of that was
It was just country, like it was
Okay.
just open fields. And at some point, we had a little soccer field there, well, what we call a soccer field there.
yeah.
And beyond that was basically like a forest area. And if you kept going like another half a mile, was the river, one of the rivers there, one
Gotcha.
major river in Colombia. Um, so, but now that's like if you go back, that's a whole different. Like they have a whole new
Right,
neighborhood
it's
there.
grown,
It's
I'm sure.
different. Yeah, it's different.
Were you? I mean, was little Fernandito running around shoeless, shirtless,
Yes, yes.
shorts? I mean, where did you get clothes and groceries and things like that, if you remember?
So running around barefoot, yes. I mean, I didn't really have a choice. You know,
Yeah.
sometimes I didn't have shoes
No
to play
zapatos.
soccer. So, my neighborhood friends used to make fun of me because they said that I had like the bottom of my feet were like like a horseshoe
Yeah,
because I wouldn't get hurt. Like I would just play. Sometimes I would kick rocks by accident, and I would just like I feel
you
like I
had
got
calloused.
used to it.
Yeah, you were calloused up.
Probably. And the nice thing, and that's one of those things that I actually miss from Colombia, that we have like small convenience stores around the corner. You can
Yeah.
just go around the corner. There's one around the other corner. There's another one,
Yeah.
and then you have a big like supermarket in the
Okay.
neighborhood as well. So if you just wanted something small, like
Yeah.
you can just go around the corner. Actually, there was one of my neighbors who passed away a long time ago. He had a little tiny convenience store there, and he had soda and
Yeah.
bread. And
Did you have to have a
basic stuff.
license to do that, or could anybody
Nah,
just
I don't
open
think
it?
so.
Okay, okay.
I doubt it.
So almost like, I mean, it's like that in the country still. Like out where I live, you'll still find a little mom and pop place that's got milk and
Yeah.
bread and things like that. But
Mhm.
but you know, in the city, I guess like New York, you find the little bodegas or whatever they call them that are
Yeah.
bodegas. Sorry,
Bodegas, yeah.
bodegas where the people can go in and you know, is that a Spanish term?
Yeah, bodega basically means
Small
like,
grocery store?
Yeah, I mean,
Small
bodega is like a storage place. It's
Okay.
a storage room.
Okay. So in New York, I know they call them that. They're like little stores that sell, you know, it's like because it's so packed. But so at some point, you're in school, you're trying your best, maybe not always,
Not until third grade, I think. I
maybe
finally
not
got it
always
together.
living up to the best. At some point, your parents said to you, what? Hey, Fernando, we're going to the United States. When does that happen?
So my sister came here first. So my brother-in-law came here to the U.S. and
This is your oldest
my
sibling, your
Yes,
sister,
yes.
her husband.
her husband came and he was here for a few years, and then he said, "Well, I'm gonna." They have
He's
a couple-
Colombian as well?
He is Colombian too,
Okay.
and they had a couple kids, my nephews, and so they decided to, come to the U.S.
Why? Do you know?
I don't know, but
Okay.
I'm assuming that's for the same
Opportunity.
reason why. Yep, just because better opportunities here in the U.S. And they were here for a few years, and then my mom and my brother-in-law's mom came to visit, and they stayed here for a few months, and then they went back. And my mom said, "Well, we think that you would have a better future in the U.S.
Mhm.
So we're thinking that maybe you should go to the U.S."
Hmm.
So
Was it you should go or we should go?
because I came with my mom.
Yeah, okay,
Yeah, it was just me and my mom that decided to, and it took a lot, like a lot of efforts. Like I stopped going to school for a few months, and we were waiting for the money. We didn't have the money, so
Were you just saving it up from?
we were saving it up. My brother sold his motorcycle to lend us the money.
Wow.
Um,
Did your brothers want to come or no?
one
were they
one of
like-
them tried, but
Okay.
it happened to be around the time of September 11th.
Okay.
So nobody was allowed to come in.
I gotcha.
And that's when we decided to come. That was when I was about 15. Finally, I felt like it was never like they kept telling me, "Oh, we're gonna go to the U.S." and I was so excited about it. I was like, "Hey," but nervous at the same time.
And
So-
how do you even start? Like you don't just jump on a plane, right? I mean, do you have to get permission?
Yes.
You have to.
Yeah. So.
I know you were 15, so your parents probably handled a lot of it. But
Correct. Yeah. Correct.
based on what you know, do you have to
We had-
apply?
We had to get a passport. We had to apply.
Okay.
We had to go to
Embassy.
an embassy in Colombia.
Okay.
And
Like the
we
U.S.
talked to
Embassy.
the gringos.
Okay.
Over there. Like my mom used to say, and
but
they
talk
had
to-
they had
See,
to sign.
Fernandito, we go talk to the gringos.
Exactly.
except in a female. We go talk to the gringos.
So,
Were
everything
they
was
helpful? Do you remember?
I don't remember.
Okay.
You mean like
The people there, did they want to help you come to the
yeah, they're
United
usually
States?
really nice. People.
Okay.
Yeah, they're usually nice. And my dad had to sign a permit to allow me to leave the country.
As one of your parents?
Yes.
Yeah.
So
That's to make sure your mom's not kidnapping you
exactly.
away from your dad,
So,
right?
Yeah.
Was that hard? Like, how long were you up here without your dad?
About a year.
Okay.
My dad
Was that hard at 15 or?
I don't know. I feel like it was a little. There were so many things going on when I came here to the U.S. Like,
Yeah. It was,
of course, I miss my dad, but I was like,
you were too busy to.
I was busy with so many things going on, like learning a new language, adapting to a new culture. I mean,
was your relationship with your dad good at 15?
Yeah, I mean, we you know how when he's good with little kids, like when he's really good with little kids, like especially when they're like toddlers. He's like a baby with them. Like he's just amazing.
And I asked you permission before I brought this up, but you had mentioned, we've talked about this in depth about the disciplinary levels of our dads, and mine was not quite to the level that yours was, but you had mentioned that there were times where your dad would get so angry with you that he would literally treat you badly.
Yes, definitely. I mean, that's how he was raised.
Yeah.
And I think his dad was a disciplinarian.
Did you know your grandfather or no?
I never met him. No. I only met my mom's mom.
Okay.
But I knew he was very strict, and my dad was very strict with me.
Yeah.
And
is that stereotypically true in Latin households and Latino, or is that a myth?
I it's not a myth, sure.
Okay.
But I think that I'm pretty sure that there is maybe the new generation is doing slightly different, but I don't think so. I think they still use la chancleta, you know.
La chancleta. For those that don't know, we joked about that. That's where somebody takes off a shoe. Or a slipper.
Yeah, a slipper.
Whatever's handy, and that's the tool of the implement of discipline.
Well, you know, my dad used to use other things, and my mom too, and there were times where I deserved it. I feel like, I mean, people might say, "Oh, you don't deserve to be punished," especially that way. But again, I don't have any like resentment for my dad for the way that he disciplined me. But you know, I mentioned to you there were a few times where my brother has to step in, like because he would just
wouldn't stop.
He wouldn't stop.
And it wasn't like I had asked you this too before because I know sometimes abuse can come in situations where there's alcohol or all that, but your dad didn't drink.
No,
you said.
My dad was not a drinker.
It was just an anger, and he wanted to beat the devil out of you.
I don't know. I think it came from his dad.
And you said, to be fair though, there were these dangers, and when you would sneak out and lie to your dad and be hanging around with the wrong crowd, he literally wanted to set you so that you would not go down that same path.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing: when I wasn't really hanging out with back in the days, I wasn't really hanging out with the wrong people. But my dad would say, "You can't go anywhere." But I would leave anyway.
Right.
I would sneak out, and I would just go around the corner with some friends, and I would hear my dad whistle. I can't whistle, but and my friends, I knew that it was him.
Loud ones,
I knew it was him.
One of those,
I know it was him, and he was standing with his hands in the back, and something was hanging there. You know what it was?
It was a belt.
It was a belt.
Yeah.
So my friends would be like, "Look who's over there." I was like, "Crap."
Oh man.
So I would start walking slowly, and as soon as I got close, I would start running, and he would, of course, he was faster than I was.
Yeah.
But
at the time.
But that same group, unfortunately, a lot of them turned out they got into gangs, and many of them.
Your dad knew.
Are not in this world anymore.
Yeah, he knew. Yeah. I mean, what do they say? It's not different from what they say about the inner cities in the United States. You end up in jail or dead. Yeah. You know, and it's
unfortunately,
when you don't have other choices, you make dumb ones. You know. Yeah. So you came here. Your mom and you came here. You spoke no English at the time, right?
No, not at all.
Not a word.
I'm still learning.
Well, I know, and we like to tease you on that one too. One of the favorites we've noticed when we talked about playing games is like a game console, but you'll say console. So we tease you a lot about different pronunciation.
Yeah.
But what is that like to just go, hey, we're going to pick up and go to what did you bring with you? Anything?
I mean,
A suitcase of clothes?
Just a suitcase of clothes, and that's it.
Yeah.
I mean,
Were you scared or were you excited?
Of course, yeah, I was scared. I mean, I didn't know what I was getting into.
Well, I mean, I'd be scared going to Colombia. Like, I'm going to walk into a culture I know nothing about.
Yeah.
So you get on a plane in Colombia and you get off a plane in southern United States or DC or where?
I don't remember what it was. I think it was DC.
Okay.
I don't remember which airport was it, but
and your sister was already here. Were they here to help you?
Yeah, they picked us up. They picked us up in my
and they had acclimated to the States a little bit, so they kind of could
my
give
nephews
you a start.
they were already in school. You know, they were, and my sister, my brother-in-law were already working.
And you and your mom settled where at that point? Here in Montgomery? Montgomery
it was
County?
in Germantown.
Germantown.
Still Germantown at my sister's house.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And how long did it take you to be able to start school? You would have been in what?
So I got
10th grade, 9th grade?
Yes, I started in 9th grade. I got here when I was October 19th of 98, and I started a month later. So I think
And does Montgomery County is pretty good about programs for English second language learners. So did they have people that spoke Spanish that could help you?
So a lot of my classmates, many of them spoke Spanish.
Okay.
But, I mean, when I was in my ESOL class.
Yes.
But when I was outside of class back then there weren't as many people that spoke Spanish.
In Montgomery County, in this area.
In my ESOL teacher was originally from Japan. Okay. And she spoke a little bit of Spanish. She was pretty good. So
but with an accent?
No. Yeah, but it was like I could understand.
Okay.
And she would like stay during lunch, and she would pull me out and like, hey, let me this is what we're learning. And she would make me pronounce things. Gotcha. And she said, "You have a good accent." I was like, I got all excited about that. I said, okay.
Do you think that was she someone significant that made you? Do you think that
she was my first ESOL teacher?
Okay. Do you think any of that help that you got and that love that she showed you caused you to want to think about teaching, or do you think it came later?
It came later.
Okay.
It came later.
So can't give her credit.
Probably not. I still remember because she was really nice to me, and I can tell that she was going above and beyond.
And where did you go to school? What high school was this? Where did you go?
Seneca Valley.
Oh, you went to Seneca Valley, so not far from here. So, okay, so you're in high school now. You're taking classes. Did you want to be here? Were you happy to be here, or would you have if the second week, would you have gone back home if they'd asked you? Okay.
Yes.
Because you missed your friends?
Yes, and because I was overwhelmed. Like it was.
Yeah.
So the first few days, I go. They have this student who's like basically escorting me to classes, and I'm like just overwhelmed with how immense for me the school was.
Did you? And I'm not making fun at all. I'm asking honestly. Was there a wow factor of like the facilities? Like, wow, look at these buildings. Yes. Like you came from an area that was run down, like you talked about, a tin roof and a dirt floor, and now you're in these beautiful multi-billion-dollar buildings. Like, was there like a holy crap?
Yeah,
like,
I was amazed. I was like, oh my gosh! I was just, just freaking out about like how everything was just so overwhelming, and then I had to go to this classroom. I have to walk to this classroom. I had to go there, and like I wasn't used to that because.
Did you how was school in Colombia compared? Like, was it a single classroom?
Yeah, it was a single classroom.
Okay.
And I mean, if we have to go to PE, of course we would go somewhere else.
Gotcha.
But for the
most part, was it all age groups together, or were you separated by age in Colombia?
Separated by age.
Okay.
Yeah,
but not just necessarily grades like there are here.
Sometimes. Okay. I think it depends on the school.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. But as far as the facilities, you come in here and you're like television sets, movie projectors,
I mean, back then I don't think we have any box lights.
Yeah, no, probably not Promethean boards.
but
you still had computer monitors and computers and and all of a sudden you feel like, and we've talked about this before, and this is what I think people don't get in the United States that have never traveled. And I've never traveled, but by being here at the school, I've learned so much. Poor in America ain't poor. compared
Not
to,
really.
I mean, I'm not trying to insult anybody in America that's struggling, but poor means poor in America means you can still go to McDonald's and you have air conditioning and a cell phone.
Yeah.
Poor in other countries means, like you said, a dirt floor with
Yeah.
water running through it when the flood comes.
Yeah.
Like, it's a whole different world. So was there any, sorry if this is a hurtful question, but was there any guilt about being here when the rest of your family was still down in Colombia? Did you ever think, man, I got all this and my family still...
I think there was guilt whenever they were going through something, like when they were struggling, because
You said when they were going through something
yeah,
in
like
Colombia.
when they were like struggling, they couldn't find a job,
Gotcha.
and of course they're not getting any income,
Right.
so then they don't have food, they don't have money to buy food. So
Yeah.
what do they do?
Yeah.
So at some point, you feel sorry for them, of
Yeah.
course. I mean, because they're struggling. But
And you've talked about here as an adult, you being the rich one in the family, or you and your sisters being, as that goes. I mean, in relative speak, that your family members sometimes will go, hey, can you help us out? And hey,
Yep.
can you, because no matter what you have here with 4 children and a single income, you have and I don't know about it now, but at some point you were the most stable financially in the family.
probably,
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, you're or you and your sister and her family, but you guys are here and you're like, you have all these resources that they don't have at home.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
So, so you went to school, you went to high school. What did your mom do? Did she get a job here? Or?
Yeah.
Okay.
So she got a job at a few restaurants, and my dad actually, when he came,
Which was how much later? About a year?
about a year later,
Okay.
he started the day after. They
Yeah.
already had a job set up for him, which was nice.
Who's they?
My brother-in-law knew
Okay.
somebody at the plumbing company.
Okay.
Where,
I didn't know if you meant the government had helped him find a job or anything.
It was my brother-in-law who knew somebody at the plumbing company.
Do you know how much it cost for you to come here? Do you have to pay the United States to be allowed to come here, or is it just a matter of getting here?
I don't remember if they pay a fee.
Okay.
Back then. I mean,
I don't know either. I was just curious.
I don't know if they had to pay
Gotcha.
something. I mean,
Do you just have to ask permission and then
yeah,
wait for the government
you do
to
have
say?
to pay some fees when you're in Colombia, so I think you pay your fees there. And
Gotcha.
then when you come here, I don't think that.
And how
there's a
long?
fee.
Do you know how long it took before you? What did you get that allowed you to come here? Was it a visa or was it a?
Yeah, it was a
green card or-
tourist visa.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
I don't know the difference between, when people say green card or a
Yeah.
passport or visas or so you came here, and was it at that time, was your goal to stay here, or were they just trying to see what would happen? And how long were you able to stay on what paperwork you had then before you had to figure out how are we going to stay longer?
Well, we knew from the beginning that I was going to stay here.
Okay.
I mean, it took a few years to adapt to a new culture, but at some point I knew I wanted to stay here.
Did your parents want to stay here?
My mom wanted to stay here.
Okay.
My dad definitely wanted to go back at some point,
Okay.
which they did.
Yeah, we'll talk about that later.
And,
They retired back to
They
Colombia.
retired, yes. Yeah, my mom wanted to stay here because it's just, she said that it was more peaceful here. So back then, I mean, we overstayed our visa, which means we were undocumented.
Okay.
Not illegal, but undocumented. I guess.
Yeah, there's a hair
There's a
split
difference,
there.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, so in other words, you had permission to come originally, but you just didn't leave when they asked
Exactly.
you to leave, right?
Yeah. So.
But it wasn't like when we sometimes joke, and I'll be very careful because it's a little insensitive, but we sometimes joke about you crossing the river, but it wasn't. You didn't sneak in; you were invited in. And
Correct.
So yeah,
We had permission.
you
to
had
come.
permission to come in, right? Yeah. So, but then when it was time, so the government said you can stay X numbers of years or
I think
days.
It gave us like 3 or 6. I think it might have been 6 months.
6 months.
Yeah.
And so now you've been here a year, and so technically you're not supposed to be here. What would have happened if they would have found you? Would they deport you, or?
Back then, I don't know, man.
Yeah.
Maybe.
maybe put you on a plane. And what year was
Maybe.
this?
That was 98.
98.
Yeah.
So, okay, we're talking
Yeah, it
after
wasn't.
after Clinton. No,
Yeah.
Clinton. That would
Was
have been President Clinton until 2000, I think. 92
I
to 2000.
remember. Was Clinton there?
It
Yeah,
would have been
maybe. I
Clinton
think, yeah.
and then George Bush right
Yeah.
after, I think.
Yeah.
The father. I don't know.
don't
I'm
remember
forgetting
either.
my history, but showing my
Um,
ignorance. So you overstayed, but then you had to basically just get more paperwork in before they caught up
So,
to you.
yeah, we used a number, which was to pay our taxes,
Okay.
to as our social security number, because technically they wanted our social security number, but it was the same amount of numbers for your tax. I think they call it the tax ID number.
Yeah.
And social security, so the same amount. So we used to say that number to work, and back then they didn't check that much. So I'm pretty sure that if they checked and realized that it was not a social security number, there's no way my parents would have been able to work.
So,
But maybe they knew, but they didn't care.
but the idea is, and this is an interesting thing that you and I have talked about before. The idea is, in this case, as an immigrant, you were paying taxes and paying Social Security, but into an account that you would have never been able to collect it from. So a lot of people go, "Oh, they're just coming here taking they are just coming here taking benefits." In your case, you were paying in,
Yeah,
but
we
you
were
would never
paying.
be able to get that money back
We
because you
never
were
got
paying
that money
into
back.
to a nothing
So
account.
that money went to somebody else.
Went to
not
somebody
us.
else, right? Do you and this I hesitate to. Well, I'll wait until later because it's in my order later. So once you got here, you guys had a place to live. Your mom and you, and then your dad comes later, and you applied for whatever paperwork you needed to become a citizen, or how does that process start?
Yeah. So the company that my dad was working for had a couple of lawyers. So the company kind of sponsored my dad
Okay,
to get our green card. And
that's what comes after a visa, like after a.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And so it's a long process. It takes about 4.5 years. It might take even longer now. Who knows?
Yeah.
But it's a
part of
long
the problem.
process.
That's
Yeah.
part of the problem
Yeah.
we'll talk about later.
And first you get your social security number when you're approved. It takes a lot. It takes a lot of sending forms and paperwork and paying fees.
Which seems weird because, it's not weird because you're dealing with the government, but it seems weird because, how much can they really ask for? You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
this is us. This is where we're coming from. This is what we're trying to do. Like, you're either going to let me come in or you're not.
Right.
And so,
Right.
but you got to go through it. Do background checks, maybe
we
you
did
got
everything.
references. You got to.
Fingerprints and everything. And we had to pay a fee because we overstayed our visa.
Okay, so at that point they caught up to you.
Yeah. So I feel like they weren't as strict back then.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they would have said, you know what, you should probably go back.
Yeah.
But after 4.5 years, I believe, we finally got our green card.
And is that a timed thing, or does that mean you could stay?
That means you are a permanent resident
Okay.
of the United States.
Okay. So that means you're not a citizen, so you couldn't vote.
Nope.
But
couldn't vote.
But you can live here.
Yes.
And be
legally. Yeah.
legally. Okay. Forever.
Yes, unless you do something
did
stupid, and
right.
then they
Right.
send you back home.
Gotcha.
And then of course, it takes a few years. I think it takes, I don't know, because I waited so long to get my citizenship, but it took.
Was that because of you, or was that because of the process?
Because of me?
Okay. So how long do you think, if you were to do it back to back, how long do you think it would take? 10 years to become a citizen? To go from visa to green card?
I'm trying to remember. You're supposed to have you got to have your green card for a certain amount of time before you can apply for your citizenship.
And to prove that you're legitimate, that you're not.
I just don't remember. I don't know.
And you mentioned it, but you're how old now?
40.
And you were how old when you became a citizen?
That was a few years ago.
It was just a few, 34, 35?
Probably, yeah.
Because I remember you were studying to take the test. A funny story for people here. We were helping you with the test. And the truth is they joke and say people that immigrate to the United States often know about the United States more than people who are born here because you do have to pass a test.
You have to pass a test. You have to study 100 questions.
Yeah, and so you were studying your questions, and we were actually taking the quizzes with you, the practice quizzes, just to see how we'd do.
Yep.
And I remember you went and you took the test, and you were like, all right, I got to go take the test. I was like, okay. And we joked, like, is it going to be in Spanish? You know?
Exactly.
But they could give it to you in Spanish if you wanted it, right?
Yes, but the rule is that you have to be, because my mom took it. You know, she came recently and took it. But
and your mom is less able to read and write English than you are.
Definitely.
Right.
Yeah, but if you are, I think the rule is that if you've been here before your 50s, and you've been in the United States for 15 years, you can take it in Spanish.
Gotcha.
If you've been here after your 50s, you wait 15 years, 20 years, and then you can take it in Spanish. So my mom had to wait, until she was in her mid-70s.
To take it in Spanish.
And she passed it.
That's good. Well, and the funny part about it was, and that you just reminded me of a question I haven't asked you yet, but I'll get to that in a second. But you said to me, I'm taking the test, and you got to question 6, and you answered question 6, and the test stopped. And I said, what do you mean it stopped? Like, did you fail? Or he goes, you said, no, I got the first 6 right. You only need 6 out of 10 to pass. And so I didn't even have to take the last 4 questions. So you answered 6 for 6.
And they said, that's it.
Welcome to the United States, where a D is good enough for citizenship. I was rooting for you, but I was kind of disappointed. Like, you only have to get a D to be a citizen.
6 correct. All right, you passed.
You passed. And then you decided, I remember us convincing you, because you're like, I don't know, should I take a day off and go to Baltimore for the ceremony? And we were like, yes, go, by all means. What was that like? Did you feel pride, or was it kind of just a formality at that point?
I think I felt pride, of course, because...
And by the way, sorry to interrupt, I'm really good at that. It's arrogant to say, did you feel proud to become a citizen of the United States, when why wouldn't you be proud of being from Colombia? So it's not like, oh, now you're a good country citizen. So it's like, I don't mean it that way, but was it something that you were proud of? Do you ever feel like, you know, I'm Colombian and I'm sort of torn between the two, or?
No, I think it was a goal. You know, since I came to the U.S., there was always a goal to achieve, and little by little, just coming to the United States,
poco a poco,
and getting a good education, learning a new language, adapting to a new culture, going to college, you know, become a professional. Become a U.S. citizen. At some point,
just one goal that people who are born here don't have to have, but you had
exactly. Because I could have done it a different way.
Right.
I got married, and my wife is a U.S. citizen. So I could have said, "Hey, I'm married to a U.S. citizen." So
that's a good point.
I wanted to just do it myself.
I never thought about that.
So I could have just said, "Hey, babe, this.
Yeah.
Why don't you just give me sign the paper so I can become a citizen?"
Yeah.
It would have been that easy. But I was like, you know what? I'm doing. That's my goal.
Yeah.
I came here to become, to achieve all the goals that I just mentioned, and that was one of them.
That was one of them.
Become a U.S. citizen.
So it wasn't so much a pride of, I'm an American, not a Colombian. It was more of a pride, or not a. By the way, we've joked about that too. Because I'll say an American, we say America.
Yeah. I like to correct you for that. For sure.
Because we'll say like an American. You say I'm an American too. I'm a South American.
Exactly.
we often we're so egotistical that American to us means United Statesian. But so you became a citizen of the United States, and but that doesn't negate what you came from or what you are. That was just one of your goals in your checklist of things to be.
I feel proud to have a double citizenship. Because still, there's a lot of things I love about my country and Colombia. But now, if you ask me, would you go back there and live there? I don't see that happening.
Yeah.
I think I understand there's a lot of people that come here when they're older. Is more difficult for them to adapt to a new culture and decide to go back.
What if you were single? Would that make a difference or no?
I think it depends on what kind of circumstances I'm going through.
But I mean, let's say you're living just fine here. Okay.
I've been here for more than 25 years.
Yeah, more than half your life. Yeah.
So I don't see myself living. I've been there before.
Do you feel like you fit in here?
Yes.
Okay.
I do.
do you feel like you fit in? And here's my, let me backtrack a little. When you're learning English and you're learning the culture in the United States, or the many cultures that are the United States, how long did it take before you felt like you belonged here? Because I'm sure you didn't in the beginning. Like, I'm sure you felt out of place, a fish out of water. How long did it feel like till you went, or do you remember anything? And I didn't ask you to prepare. I didn't tell you any of these questions ahead of time. Was there a moment that you can remember where you kind of went, hey, I'm kind of Americanized. I feel like I'm fitting in more now.
Yeah, I think so. I think that probably when I was when I was towards the end of my high school years,
Okay.
I think that, I was already adapted to the culture. There were other classmates that I could relate to, that we went through the same process
Yeah.
of learning a new language and adapting to a new culture.
These are other people that you were friends with.
That I was friends with.
Yeah.
And, starting to, listen to some music that, high school students back then used to listen to.
Right. So your buddies were going to hear a concert, and that was music that you understood and liked too.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So that's when I felt like I actually, had finally, well, not finally, because I know there were a few more steps. So when I started getting adapting to the culture.
Right. Did you in high school? Did you play sports in high school here?
Yeah.
Did you feel like that you fit in? Did you feel racism in your high school? I mean, Seneca Valley's a fairly mixed school, and you were going in the 90s, so
Yes.
not back in the 60s or 70s like the previous, because you're a generation younger than me pretty much, almost. Did you experience much in the way of, we don't want your type here, or were there funny things? Did people talk to you loudly and slowly to try to get you to understand when,
Well, they did that because I didn't know the language.
Yeah.
For sure. They were trying
I
to make
said
sure.
pencil. Do
Yeah,
you have a? And you're like, slow and loud doesn't make it any better. It's
Exactly.
still English.
But no, I didn't feel like that. Like, I think that, like you said, even back then Seneca was a pretty diverse school.
Okay.
And,
There were enough people in the
there were
community.
confrontations, typical teenagers have with other people. But, like, I don't think I ever really felt like they were discriminating me for being
Yeah.
an American.
Yeah.
And South American.
South American for being an American. All right, let me get. So plane ride to get to the United States, high school. I'm just going through some of the questions. We've kind of meandered through all that. What did you like the best about being here at first, and what did you hate the most about being here first? Like, what was? I mean, I'm not trying to be dumb. Do you have fast food restaurants? Was it the ability to get fast food, McDonald's, French fries? I mean, like, was there something that you were like, oh, I remember loving this ice cream place, or loving the mall, or loving, like, was there anything that you got here when you came that you were like, wow, this is heaven? Or the other side, was there anything you were like that you hated about being here?
I can start with what I hated, and I still hate it. It's the cold.
Yeah.
I hate the cold. And oh my gosh. Sometimes I was like waiting out for the bus, like when I was in high school, and here I am freezing. I was like, what is this? What did I get myself into?
Yeah. And you're a very thinly built guy.
Yeah.
You're a soccer guy. You're very thinly built. And so you don't have a lot of insulation. And
Definitely not.
when you come in here in the mornings and you have that big yellow puffy
I'm always
coat,
like, man, this is cold.
yeah,
here.
you're hustling. You're just, I got to get in the building.
It's because you're blowing heat to that thermostat right there.
That's right. So the cold, you mind the cold. Yeah, because when it gets up in the 90s, you're loving it.
I hate it. I just hate it. I think, and I tell my wife this, like, if it's going to be cold, we might as well just get snow, because that's the most beautiful thing about the winter is the snow.
Yeah, you didn't have snow in Colombia, right?
No, I never.
Unless you were in the mountains.
I came climbing.
Well, no. Were the mountains high enough to get snow in Colombia, or no?
In certain areas, I think.
Yeah, but you weren't near
like
them.
Near a volcano.
Had you ever seen snow before you came here?
No.
Yeah.
I remember. I know we'll probably get back to that. But I just remember seeing it for the first time, and it was like, what is this? And my nephew's like, oh, that's snow. I was like, oh, snowflakes.
That's pretty cool.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I got really excited.
We've had kids here at Neilsville that when it's snowing and I'll open the door here in my classroom and they're like,
oh, really?
Wow.
That's
like,
cool.
And I'm like, oh. And
that was my experience.
When I first started teaching here and I said,
Yeah.
you've not seen snow? And no, I'm from, and I'm like, it never occurred to me that you've
That's
never
cool.
seen snow before.
Yeah. And
So
things that I mean, that I loved. I love the culture. I mean, I think that um, again, it's a very diverse culture, and I feel like I fit in. I mean, and there were so many things that I did. I mean, playing. I love when I first came, and I was able to get into a team. Like playing high school sports was awesome for me.
football.
Football. I felt like I was a professional sometimes because we had people coming to see at the stadium, and you're
Yeah.
like, whoa, this. I mean, that never happened in Colombia. I mean, we played, but like
In a field.
on the field and
Yeah.
just like pick up game. But this was different. This
Yeah.
was oh my gosh, what is this? Like,
So you felt like a rock star
Oh my
if there were
gosh.
60 people in the stands.
yeah,
And,
it was.
and you're playing under the lights feeling like,
exactly at night. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Except for the
I
cold,
never thought
of course,
about that.
but it was
Except for the
exciting.
cold. It was
I
exciting.
was wearing gloves and
you
long
just-
sleeves playing. Oh my
You
gosh.
just said a sighting like Ricky
There
Ricardo.
you go.
It was a sighting. And you felt pretty accepted, like most
Yeah,
places
like
you
it's-
went?
Yeah, like I said, I don't think I feel like I feel more discrimination when I was a little older.
Yeah.
Like, I share a couple of things with you
Yeah.
that happened to me not that long ago. But I felt like I really, was accepted by everybody around me.
I'm remembering the story you told me when you moved to where your house is now.
Yes.
And which is out in the country. And
We can tell the story if you want.
yeah, well, I mean, I just remember this was the restaurant story, right? You told me
We were outside of an ice cream place.
of an ice cream place. And you go ahead, I'll let you tell us
So
your story. Because to be fair, for the audience that's not around here, Germantown is a suburb of DC, so we have people
Yeah,
from all over
exactly.
here. Where you moved to is north of here, and it's more rural, and
Yeah.
it's more white community, and
Mhm.
so a Hispanic man is a little bit of a novelty there.
Yes.
And
yes.
so, go ahead.
So we, me and my wife and my back then I think we might have 3 kids. We go get some ice cream and we sit down on the benches outside, and so I'm walking by and there's 2 older guys there.
Yeah.
They see me walk by and I overhear that they say, "What's Speedy Gonzalez doing off the streets?"
And you know,
And then the other guy said, "I don't know, he might be cutting some grass or something."
yeah.
I'm
So
like, okay.
here's the thing: we go, okay, we're laughing at it now because that's the kind of thing we would joke about here.
Yeah. Yeah.
They probably weren't joking. Like, and you look at it and you go,
I mean,
you don't know, but they didn't treat
Yeah,
you bad. But
yeah.
do you think they did that on purpose, like loud enough for you to hear, or
I mean, I feel like I give them the benefit of the doubt because they were older,
okay?
so maybe they were deaf and they couldn't hear that.
You're being very
They-
kind about it. Yeah, I mean,
But-
you don't know though. You
But
don't
but
know.
it's possible that they said it on purpose just to. But the weird thing is that my wife is Caucasian, so it's
Yeah.
like.
But your
um,
wife she's very light. I mean, she's clearly Caucasian, but she has dark hair. I mean, maybe there could be but I
it's
wouldn't think
possible.
so.
But,
I wouldn't think so.
I mean, they see my kids. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Well, some of your kids look more Hispanic than you do, I feel like.
I feel like they're all kind of light skinned.
Oh, you do? Okay.
I mean, and
I've only seen them in pictures lately, so maybe that.
I mean, they're so it was I kind of and we kind of sat next to them, and I was like, "Can I tell my wife? Did you hear what they said?" And
Yeah.
And I was waiting for them to say something. Now, not like I was gonna get up and punch them in the face. They were older
No,
people,
not
but
at
I
all.
think I would
Yeah.
have. I would have said something, but
Yeah.
they didn't say anything else. So
Yeah.
I just let it go.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, so you just don't know what they were thinking. Now, did you guys rent? Did you live in an apartment or a home right away, or how did that work
When we first came?
When you came here, or once your dad was here, or whatever.
so we were living with my sister and my
Okay.
brother-in-law, and we stayed in the basement.
Okay.
With the rest of the 20 people that used to live there. Just kidding.
Okay, I was gonna say.
But there
Okay.
was actually some of my brother-in-law's brother and sister were there too.
Gotcha.
And at some point, I think we lived there for, say, a year and a half, maybe 2 years.
Okay.
And then my dad, my parents and I decided to go to rent an apartment.
Gotcha.
And we rented an apartment there for a few years, say probably 6-7 years. And we saved enough money to buy our first home
Yeah.
with my parents.
Yeah.
So
And then that was the house you lived, and then
right,
sold to buy a
we
house
sold
with
to
your
buy a house with
your
my
wife.
wife, and then we sold that one, and we bought this other house too.
Did you make friends easily when you came here? Like in high school, did you feel like it was easy to make friends?
It was easy to make friends with people that in my ESOL class. I think those become your best friends. Those
it's all you've got, right?
Because you spend a lot of time with them. Like you literally have like 2 hours with them.
Right.
And then you go to your elective classes.
Was there anybody else in your class from Colombia?
Yeah, actually, there were a couple of the girls from Colombia there too. Yeah.
So you guys had a very common
we had
shared
somebody
experience.
from Mexico. We had some people from Afghanistan, Pakistan, and that was really neat. Just be able to just meet people from other countries.
And you were all in the same boat. I mean, well, that might be a bad way to put it. But you were all in the same situation where you were all trying to learn the culture and the language.
Yes, and we were learning, and not only that, but we were learning from each other's culture as well.
Yeah.
It was pretty neat. And I got myself in a few situations where I'm like, what did I say? Like, people got offended.
Yeah.
And then I realized that
in their language,
in their language or their culture, or maybe the way I approached them, or put their hand on, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't remember what it was, but it was like, oh my gosh, what did I do?
You realize everything. The world's big once you start learning about different things.
And just in that little classroom, I feel like I learned so much about culture.
I'm sure it would have been an eye-opening experience, because there's so many subtleties to any culture that you don't do that. What are you crazy?
Exactly.
Did you feel like the administration was fair and understood like the differences as you learned, or did you run into anything where
I did.
MCPS was like not understanding, or what could they have done better?
This is what I feel with, like, even, I mean, there's a lot of people that don't understand, even within the Hispanic culture. We have different dialects and ways we express things, and words that might be a little bit what's the word I'm looking for?
Like offensive
to others. And I did get in trouble once because I said the word. I don't know if I should say it here.
Well, this is more. I'm thinking of these interviews as a documentary, so it's like you're learning about it. So I mean, I don't think I have. It's fine if you want to.
It's word was pendejo, which for some people, I know for the Peruvians, I think it can be kind of offensive.
Okay.
And for the Mexicans say it a lot.
I've heard it.
I mean, they say it a lot, and it's like it's like like somebody here saying like I don't know what else.
Like a loser, or
I guess, but
But you say it almost like, hey, come on, loser.
The way you emphasize things too, I think.
Okay.
I mean, it can be offensive in Colombia if you just emphasize it a different way. Maybe if you're trying to get into
or is it like jerk? Like you could
I guess.
Could go like, hey, stop being a jerk.
Yeah.
If you say it that way, it's one thing, but if you go, you're a jerk.
So with me and my buddy, my Mexican friend, were like, I don't remember what we were doing, but I called him pendejo.
Yeah.
And my ESOL teacher, the Japanese, heard, and she brought me to a Cuban ESOL teacher.
Okay.
And she got me in trouble.
Because in Cuba, that word would be more,
apparently is a very vulgar word.
I gotcha.
But again, for us, it's not. I mean, in my opinion, as I was growing up.
Yeah, in the hierarchy, it doesn't rank that high.
It's not super offensive.
That's interesting.
And she got me in trouble. She called home, and my parents are like, "It's not offensive for us. Like, why are you getting him in trouble?"
Okay.
I think it was my sister who called.
Yeah.
But that was the only time that I remember I got. I think it should have been a different approach. Like
right.
Listen, it's just I understand. Maybe for you it doesn't.
Right.
It's not offensive.
Right.
But for us it is. So maybe you shouldn't say that word.
Right.
Because the culture. I was learning.
I'm going to bring this up later, but remind me if I forget, please. Why you are a blessing here at Neelsville is that same idea. We have a ton of students at Neelsville that are Hispanic and a ton that speak English as a second language or are learning English. And your ability to, I just saw it today when a child was having an interaction with another child and one supposedly pushed one and the other kid roughed him up and whatever. And you could talk to that kid in his language. So there's no confusion. There's no, he can express himself to you. And I don't care what anybody says. It's the same with my other buddy Will, who's black, who's a PE teacher. Kids feel more a black kid 9 times out of 10 feels more comfortable sharing with a black teacher, and a Hispanic kid will tell you more. You speak his language. He feels like he can trust you. It builds an instant trust that he doesn't have with a white teacher.
Right.
And I'm not saying every kid and every teacher, but I'm saying general rule. If you have that kid feels like, well, Mr. Giraldo will understand me because he's also Hispanic.
Right.
And that is one of the best things about having you and Will here is that we have, 8 to 12% white in our building. And so those students that are black or Hispanic have you guys in a less serious environment than math, where they can come in and joke with you and you can joke with them, but also they feel like they have somebody who gets them. And the kids know, or presumably you share with them if it comes up, that you immigrated to the United States. So they know, hey, here's a guy who did exactly what I'm trying to do.
Right.
And that role model has got to be great for the kids. But
and whenever I get a chance, I try to encourage them to like not give up, like especially when I see that they're struggling, because that's the same thing I went through, like the question you asked me earlier, like was there ever like a time where I wanted to go back?
Yeah.
Like the answer was yes, because you're adapting to a new culture,
Yeah.
a new language, and you're like I cried.
Yeah,
there were days where I was crying.
And you weren't mature enough to understand that what was happening to you ultimately could very well be a good thing.
Right.
And so you're like, this sucks, and I'm stuck doing this for the rest of my life.
I want to go back.
Yeah. I can totally understand that. Now, your parents, when just a few years ago, actually, and I know this was a sad moment for you, your parents, or specifically your dad, was motivated to move back to Colombia to retire. What was the decision process for that? Why did they decide to do that, or why did he want to do that? And you mentioned earlier that he was not less excited, but less motivated to stay here forever than your mom would have been.
Yes.
So look, let's be honest, he was not 15 when he came here. He was 45 or 50. So most of his life was in Colombia. So maybe you can understand that. But as a retiree, what's the advantage to going back to Colombia for your dad?
Well, mostly, my dad was getting too old, to work, especially what he was doing. Like, he was carrying, heavy loads on his back. And he had some problems with his lower back.
How old was your dad when they retired, or when he moved back?
Like early 70s.
Yeah.
And he was struggling, but they had a house, which
perpetuating that stereotype of a hardworking American.
So he the money that he would still have to go to work, and he wouldn't even make enough money to pay for mortgage.
Gotcha.
And again, he was getting to a point where, like, he could have found another job, I guess, but
his body was
struggling.
giving
His
out.
body was just not,
So
and they decided to go back because they were now citizens, and they don't have to work anymore.
Yeah.
Over there, because the money kind of like
it goes further.
Quadruples, I guess.
It's the same reason that I live in West Virginia and work in Maryland, because the salary I make here is much higher than I can make there. So when I take this dollar and spend it over there, and it goes a lot further.
And they, he worked, and my mom worked. They worked really hard here for more than 20 years, and even we had this discussion with my wife as well. Not that she disagrees with the fact that they're getting Social Security there,
right?
Benefits, but I know a lot of Americans that were born here and they live in Costa Rica because they know that it's easier to live there.
So
they're still getting Social Security.
So your parents can get the Social Security they paid into from here,
exactly,
even though they live there.
Yeah. If you're a U.S. citizen,
there's nothing wrong with that. They paid it in.
Yeah, but some people disagree with that.
I don't see.
Some people don't like it.
I never knew that
because
but
you're
I
not
didn't
contributing to the country, because you're not here.
You already contributed. You get
that's the way
I'm
I
sorry.
see it.
I'm supposed to be interviewing.
No, I know.
Not doing.
Well, we
my
have
opinions.
these discussions often for a reason.
But I didn't know. I didn't know that you could do that. So that's interesting. So, but it's their money the way I look at it. So
they paid taxes for many years.
Yeah.
And I'm happy for them, because my mom would rather live here, but but they don't have to worry about working. They have their house there that they built. That same old house that we had when we were little, now we have
Fixed up.
It's much better. And
Dirt floors?
nope, not anymore.
All right.
Actually, it's nice.
Good.
I think I show you. I don't think you've not seen the pictures.
I've
of
not
the
seen
inside,
pictures,
but
yeah.
you've seen the picture of the outside.
Well, and if there's any that, I mean, it's anonymous enough. If there's anything that you want me to share as part of this, I can add it up on the screen tue. So
Okay.
if you have any pictures you want to show
That'll
the
be
audience,
nice if I can find a picture of
any
how,
pictures of anything we've talked about, I can plug them in after. The post-production crew.
Okay.
All the people that I have working in the back.
In the back, yeah.
But
you guys good?
yeah, you guys good. Can I have another water? So they moved back home, kind of stretched the money to be able to retire because
Yeah.
they might not have been
Otherwise,
able to here.
there's exactly.
Yeah.
That's exactly right.
Yeah. And for your kids, I mean, grandmom and granddad that were here, I mean, they're young.
Yeah.
And I don't mean to ask something that can be upsetting, but how do your kids adjust to that? How do you adjust to that? Your mom and dad gone? Like, is
Well,
it hard?
For my kids, I think it's a little easier because they're kids. I feel like when you're a kid, it's like you can adapt to.
They're just here or they're not here.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And especially my little ones. I think my oldest son, surprisingly, when my parents left, when they came to visit this past summer, he was upset. Like he was
Upset when they left?
like, when they left, that he would sit in the
Yeah.
corner and
Pout,
just stay
yeah.
there. I'm like, what's going on, buddy?
Yeah.
Like, he was actually upset because my first two boys actually were basically taken care of by my mom,
By your mom, yeah.
and my dad.
Yep.
When my wife and I was when
Yeah.
my wife was working.
Yeah. Your mom was your daycare, basically.
Yeah. And
Which is great because they
oh
were
my
raised by
gosh.
grandmom, and
yes, it was awesome.
nobody loves them more.
And their Spanish was great. Now
I'm sure.
terrible.
That's another question I
know.
was gonna ask you as well. How you do that?
Yeah. So I think it's a little easier for them.
Okay.
For me, I mean, it was tough. I mean, especially when they left the first time. I think because I knew from a long, I don't know, I knew
It was coming.
that it was coming.
Yeah.
So when they left, of course I was emotional, but like I don't think I cried.
Right.
But when they came this past summer and they left,
Yeah.
I just burst into tears
Yeah.
at the airport. Like,
Yeah.
'cause, I mean, and the reason why. I
Yeah.
mean, they live so far away.
Yep.
And they're older.
Yep.
I don't know that was the last time I'm gonna
I
be able to see
understand.
them.
Yep. And it's not like even by yourself, but it's not like with a family your size. You can how do you prioritize taking money out of the family budget to fly to Bolivia? Goodness.
Venezuela.
Yeah, Venezuela, Mexico, same place. No, but how do you justify, how much money can you justify taking out of the budget to fly to Colombia to visit your parents versus them coming here?
It's
And,
easier for them to come here.
yeah.
I mean,
with all your children, with all 17 of your kids.
You never.
Your poor wife.
You think that Laura would help me?
Yeah, probably.
Okay.
Yeah, we had a joke. We had a teacher here, I won't mention names, who sort of, I mean, that's a racist thing too, even though I'm guessing she was sort of joking, but not really.
I'm telling you, when you say something, it's because you mean it.
Yeah.
I mean,
and she said something to the effect of, well, I don't want to be paying for all, and I was like, and luckily we had another teacher here
I'll pay for that.
He goes, don't worry about it, I'll pay for him. Yeah. Yeah, it's funny when you get those little left-handed jabs and you kind of go, hey, all right, well, let me go on to, we talked about your citizenship and becoming here. You had mentioned this a second ago, and it's on my list, that your kids speaking Spanish. So they did when your parents were here because your mom spoke it to them. Now, your wife was a Spanish teacher, so you say often that her Spanish is more technically correct than yours is.
Yes, it is, for sure.
So do you try to teach them Spanish at home, or is it just left over from when your parents were here?
It's only when I'm mad that I like Ricky Ricardo.
There you go. Lucy, you've got some explaining to
exactly.
do.
Exactly.
And don't you make fun of my English.
That's English.
Sí, inglés, lo hablo muy bien, muy perfectamente. Usted no me tiene que decir con rebolico ese que no lo hablo bien.
How dare you say that to me?
What did I say?
I don't know, but how dare you?
I don't know why I do this. Like, sometimes I regret it. But their Spanish was actually pretty good when my mom was taking care of them. Especially my first two, and even my third one was learning a lot too. And it was like I didn't even know how good it was until I went there and they were interacting with my parents. I was like, oh my God,
Yeah, this is
Spanish
crazy
is
good. Yeah.
And then now they forgot about. I mean, I think if I talk to them slowly, they understand. And there's a lot of words that I do say in Spanish still, but I don't speak Spanish to them
At
altogether.
home. Yeah.
And
How do you go about making that choice as a parent
I
about
don't know, man. I here's the thing. I think that I would have been more willing to do it,
if your parents were here?
and if my wife tried. But
Oh, okay.
my wife, she speaks Spanish really well. Like I said,
Right.
probably better than me. And I was like, at some point we talk about this. Like we should talk to them in Spanish. I said, you should talk to them in Spanish. You're
Yeah.
the native speaker. And I was like, yeah, but you speak Spanish too. But I don't feel comfortable speaking Spanish because it's not my native language.
Gotcha.
But even though she's really good
Very
at it.
fluent, right?
And I feel like the fact that I don't know, like because she speaks Spanish, English to them, then I feel like I just never move into like shifting to speak Spanish.
Yeah.
Sometimes I just jokingly start speaking Spanish to them, and they're like, they smile. I mean, they understand a few things, but they're like waiting for me to give the command in English. So
yeah, acting like they don't understand.
Exactly.
So, which brings up a funny. That's some of my funny stories towards the end. There's a question here that we danced around but skipped over it. When you went to college, now you went to Towson State. Is that?
Well, not back then. I think it was Towson University. It might be.
Right.
I think it's called something different now.
Well, or was it TSU then TU, or I don't know. Anyway,
Yes.
I think it was Towson State originally, and then it became Towson University. Were there programs to help? Like, were there any financial or educational programs to help? Tutoring programs to help people who immigrated, who struggled with the language? Or did you benefit from any programs, or did you just do it on your own?
I did it on my own, and
Okay.
I think I could have done that, but I feel like it was I had such a busy schedule because I was commuting to college every day.
Okay.
So
From Germantown
from
to Baltimore, right?
So I was commuting every day and go to class. And maybe I had to go to the library and get some work done. But I never really did my research. I could have definitely benefited from somebody.
Did you need help?
Oh yes.
Okay.
I mean,
Tutoring or anything?
I need helping out sometimes.
Well, I understand. Was it still language based, or like was it still a language based disadvantage?
Yes, it just took me longer. It just took me longer to process things.
Okay. Because you've got to translate everything.
English is not I don't really translate it anymore.
Okay.
Like I feel like it's.
Did you then, in college?
Maybe a little bit.
Because I mean, that's only 5 years after you came. How long does it take before you start thinking in English, or do you not?
I think it depends on the person. Like I had somebody that learned English in 1 year when I was in high school, and it took me longer than that to be able to interact with.
Do you think in English, or do you think in
I
Spanish?
think in English.
Okay.
But sometimes I count in Spanish.
Do you dream in English, or do you dream in Spanish?
In both.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Because I ask ladies, like the ladies in our main office here who are Spanish speakers native, and I'll say, when you speak in English, do you think it in Spanish and then translate, or are you to the point where English comes now? And a lot of them will say, I think it in Spanish and then translate in my head.
No, for me, it comes naturally.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's been 20 plus
Yeah.
years. So.
But it just, for me, it's just, it takes me longer to process certain things.
What words are hard for you to say in English?
Here's the thing. I think that, I just have my accent, but according to a few people.
You have an accent?
I do. According to a few people, like if I repeat what you ask me to say, I have a good accent.
Okay.
Like I don't.
You mean it doesn't come out as bad? Okay.
Yeah. Like there's certain words that I've already said many times here, that come out funny.
Well,
but
I should say
my wife's still corrects me. She says, "No, this is how you say it."
Right.
Okay. And then I repeat it and I say, "Okay, that's good."
Right.
That's
well, and you ask too. Like if you
ask.
hear, like sometimes you'll say a word and it just.
It comes out like I butcher it. Funny
is not. I don't mean it funny like haha you're bad at English, but funny like it sounds weird in my ear because it's not how a native English speaker would say it. And then I'll just laugh or I'll smile and you'll be like, "What did I say?"
And it's usually it's usually words that I probably not used to.
Like console.
Like console, yeah.
Yeah.
Like I don't say console very often.
Well,
But now that I know,
we
it's
don't either
console.
really, but a game console.
Yeah.
If you console somebody, that's like when they're
That's
sad
true.
or upset. So
That's
just emphasis
That's true.
makes a big difference.
Yeah.
And so then back to that was just a jump back to the college thing because I saw it on here and I wanted to ask. This now we'll get into like a serious one real quick. As an immigrant who came here legally and went through the processes, okay, so you overstayed a visa, but you applied, you came here. How do you feel about people that are coming to the United States the way we see on the news right now, like the height of, and I'm not asking you to either condemn or approve, but do you look at most of them and say, it's justified or they're taking advantage? Do you feel like, man, I had to wait in line, that's not fair? Like, how do you feel when you look at that without condemning the people?
It's funny when you hear that people say I have to wait in line, because there's a lot of other nations that have it easier to get here, right? So waiting in line is like, it's funny to hear that.
What do you mean by that? I'm not sure I understand your point. You mean because we don't allow? Are you saying because? And I'm asking because
Right.
I don't know this. Are you saying that if I'm from another country, Israel, and I want to come here, I can do it like that? But if I'm from a certain country in South America,
Correct.
they make it harder.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Are we? I don't even.
No, and even in Latin America, like there are some countries that have it easier to get here, but of course, it's just.
Do you think it's because of the reputation of the country you're coming from, or do you think it's a racist based? I mean, is it a racism based thing? If you're brown, we want to make it harder. Like, and I know you're. First of all, let me be very clear on behalf of Fernando. I've known you for 10 plus years.
Yep.
You are not the person to go out and cry racism. You deal with it. You're a very honest person when it comes to this. You don't go around claiming everything's racist.
Exactly.
So if you were to say, yeah, I think that's it, that would carry a lot of weight with me. But I'm just trying to say, like, how do you feel like we decide as a country who comes in, oh yeah, come on in, Bob, and you're going to have to wait?
I mean, I think it depends on the relationship with the other country.
Okay.
I mean, if they're getting some sort of benefit, if there's some sort of benefits in between, like, you get this, and I'll give you this, then it'll be more likely for people from that country to get here.
Gotcha.
But
so Colombia may not have a whole lot to offer the United. For example, Colombia may not have a whole lot to offer the United States, so therefore the United States is not being as nice about allowing those people in.
As an example, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm just using that as a for
or like what's happening in the border, like people crossing the border and in large numbers. That can be overwhelming even for anybody, right? For even if you're not against immigration, it can be a little overwhelming. But back to your original question, like I think that people leave their country because there's a reason. There's got to be a reason why. And when you do your research, you understand that unfortunately there's a lot of people whose children are being recruited to join gangs, and not like they have to go. Right. They don't have a choice.
Yeah, as in you're going to join or we kill your family.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's like when Mary and Joseph had to leave because was it the emperor that was gonna
to kill Jesus.
Kill all the kids,
all
the kids under 2.
The king,
so, and they have to leave their homeland.
Yeah.
So it's the same reason why a lot of these people, like, did you really think that if they were having such a great time back in their country, right, they would leave their country?
Of course, no, I don't. I think everybody that comes to the border, whether it's literally the border or whether they come on a plane.
Yeah, I mean,
but I think everybody that comes to the border comes here with the hopes and the dreams of America's got something better than what I can get in my own country.
And think about all the risks they're taking on the way here. And they're
Of
coming
course.
with kids.
Of course.
They're going through a desert where it's like poisonous snakes, the heat.
The coyotes.
The coyotes.
Yeah. And I'm not talking about the animal, although that's a problem too.
That's true.
Yeah.
And women and kids get raped on the way.
Yeah.
I mean, it's ridiculous. I mean, you think that I would, go through that process if I wasn't desperate?
If you weren't desperate, yeah. So what do we? Let's assume for a second that let's pretend. Even if it wasn't true, let's pretend for a second that it's true. That and we know, like you're a realist, you know that there are people taking advantage, the drug lords and the drug gangs, that are taking advantage, making a lot of money off of it, using these people to sneak into the country. I mean, there is that happening as well as all of these wonderful people who just want to come for a safer place to raise their children. There's also people who are using that as a way to hide, to come into the country.
Right.
How do we, and this is a legitimate question I don't know the answer to. Do you think we can absorb the numbers of people that are coming? Do you think as a country we have to limit it in some way? Do you think we can literally just say, hey, whoever comes in is fine and we'll take care of things? Do you see it as a problem? And what can we do to fix it? What can we don't want to de-incentivize coming to the United States, but at some point, could it get out of hand? Is it out of hand already? What do we do with all these people? And I'm asking you to solve a problem that might not be solvable in this podcast.
So many questions, so many answers, right?
Yeah. But just your gut reaction.
I just feel like it has to be a better process. We need the immigrants, especially in seasons where we need the extra labor. Yeah. Right. We need them.
It's good for us. It's good for them.
Correct.
Yeah.
And maybe and a lot of them come and go. They just come to work and then they leave. Right. Some come because again they don't want to come back because of all the stuff that is going on back there. Right. But I'm always looking to find the happy medium, right? It's probably if we don't have a good process, it can get out of hand. Yeah.
Do you think it's out of hand now? And it's not a trick question. I'm just asking your thoughts. Do you think, with all the people coming in, we have no idea who's here? And I'm not saying, that's a problem because one of them's going to go blow up a building, but is it a problem because, how do we know our resources can support? It's, for example, sorry to keep going on with the question, but the Texas governor for now, and I am not at all going to take sides on politics, but just stating a fact. The Texas governor now is saying, hey, the federal government is not helping me down here. We've got all these people that are coming into Texas, which makes it my financial and personnel obligation to take care of them. Got to find a place for them to go. So he's now hiring buses to bus thousands of immigrants to New York City, to Chicago, because he's basically saying, you think it's not a problem? You guys up there say, the more the merrier. Well, what's it like when these people land on your doorstep and you have to come up with the money to take care of them? And I saw a news article where people are sitting on buses and sleeping on buses in Chicago because of the cold for 6-7 days, immigrants, because they don't have a place for them. And so when I see that, is that a sign that it's out of hand, or is that a sign that we're just not good at dealing with them? And by them, I mean all the immigrants.
I think it's a combination of both, right? It's probably getting out of hand, and because we don't know how to deal with the situation, because the government is not willing to come up with a plan to find a way to I don't know. I mean, it's kind of difficult. Yeah, it's just so many things I can think of, but just not being able to compromise on something, whether. Maybe let's just let a certain amount of people come in. Right. Can we work out as a few states work together and see what we can compromise on? Yeah, for work, for housing, exactly, for food, and maybe, and I'm pretty sure that many of them are willing to go back once they work for a few months or whatever.
Well,
But
here's the other thing, and not to answer for you, but how about this? How about a lot of these people that come are willing to do an honest day's work for an honest day's pay and are happy to pay into the system
Right.
just for the freedom of being able to come to the United States. So we're not, all of the people that are coming across the border aren't terrible people. They just need a chance. And so, but it's a matter of how do we do that without upsetting the apple cart? How do we go, whoa, whoa, whoa? You know, it's like, I'll give this example, and I don't mean any disrespect, so hopefully nobody will take it this way. I bring a big jar of lemon drops into my classroom, right? And I have it behind the desk. Well, one student happens to see it, and they'll go, "Oh, could I have a lemon drop?" And I go, "Oh, yeah, sure." So I'll open it up and let them take a lemon drop. Then 10 kids see, and next thing you know,
Everybody
you go,
was-
yeah. So the same thing, similar, like, okay, you can come in and we'll help you, and then all of a sudden, 5,000 people are there, and then 20,000, and so at some point you kind of go, okay, wait, I can't.
There
But
should
you
be-
also don't want to do the I can't do it for anybody. That's it. Nobody comes in. So you're right about the compromise, in my opinion.
Yeah, there's got to be a limit for sure. Because I think at some point it can get out of hand. Because, like you said, now we have so many people sleeping on buses in New York City, and it's cold. You know, and what are they waiting for now?
Yeah, temporary housing
it's just-
somewhere.
Like, it's ridiculous. So if there's a compromise between several states,
Yeah.
and helping these people, I'm pretty sure that things will work out better for all.
And while it costs them some money up front, which I know is what they're thinking, how much am I going to have to pay out of our tax money? And at the moment these people arrive, these immigrants arrive, they're not paying anything into the system, but they eventually would. You know what I mean? But it's like, well, wait, what are we supposed to do? Just give them instant citizenship and give them a social
Right.
security number? So it's the process that's hard. And in the meantime, you got humans. You've got people that are not, it's not them, it's us, you know, and we are, as everybody says, I started with the quote, we're a nation of immigrants. Give us your poor, you're tired, you know, and these people are poor and they're tired and they're trying to escape.
They're desperate.
Yeah, they're desperate. So, kind of covered the what could the U.S. do to fix the problems. There's not really a short answer, but just to come up with some kind of a compromise that, what are some major, we kind of talked about this a little bit. What are some of the funny, I want to close with something a little lighter hearted. So I have just a couple here that I think will be a little bit lighter hearted. What are some of the major, this combo question, sorry. What are some of the major things culturally that are different between Colombia and the United States? Like, what are some things that, and again, I didn't give you time to think about it ahead of time, but things you can do here that in Colombia you could never get away with, or vice versa, things you could do in Colombia or see in Colombia that you'd never see in the United States? Are there any things that pop into your head about just huge cultural differences?
You can bribe the policeman over there.
Okay. You might be able to here. It just might cost more. But,
I know.
But I wouldn't try
It'll cost
it.
a few years in jail. That's all.
Yeah.
But I mean, I remember. I mean, it was like, that for sure. Because again, they don't
Yeah.
get paid that much, and
No.
and they want to be bribed. I mean, why not? I
Yeah.
mean, it's like
Because all they want to do is go home with more money in their pocket.
exactly. I mean, they need to feed their families too.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that people here are more into I feel like there's more of a routine here. Like, you don't really see your neighbors very often. Like, even if you live next door, like if you live in a set of apartments or like townhouses, you don't really know your neighbors that much. It probably depends on where you are. Here in Maryland, I feel like it's that way. Maybe if you go down to the south, it might be different.
Yeah.
But
and rural areas, like
Yes.
where I live, I at least can recognize everybody that
Right.
lives within,
right,
1,000 feet, but
yeah, but in Colombia is a little more. It might be just, and it's a Latino culture, I think. You have parties.
Yeah.
The whole block is having a party,
Yeah.
and you invite all your
Cerveza?
neighbors, cerveza, and no navaja, cuchillo, no puedes parquear aquí.
I was like, I one thing that I shared with Fernando early on was I worked security when I was in college for a private security company, and there was a bar that took advantage, in my opinion. Well, no, not in my opinion. She took advantage
did.
of the fact that a lot of Hispanic people would come in to pick the apples during the apple season.
Yep.
And they where this was, there weren't a lot of places where they could go and hang out without experiencing racism, and
Right.
so she turned her bar into a Mexican bar and
Smart lady.
hired mariachi bands and all these different Mexican music bands, and then she would charge $20 a head for this was in $1990, charge $20 cover charge for men, $10 for women, and she was charging $3 for a can of beer. And these guys would
that was
roll
back
up.
then.
Yeah, and these
my
guys would
gosh.
roll up with a roll of cash because they were paid in cash, and they would just peel off, $60 to get 3 of them in the door. And I worked the door, collected the money, but the only Spanish that I knew was, no puedes parquear aquí, you can't park here. And then I was supposed to ask if they had navaja pistola. They weren't allowed to take knives or guns. So it's the only Spanish I knew. You can't park here, and do you have any knives or guns? But yeah, and I mean, we worked the door, and by 1 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock in the morning, West Virginia is late. They can stay open late in West Virginia, or at least could. We would have $1,500 to $1,800 just in door money. And that's before they even bought a drink. So but they were living, there were a lot of them, like you joked earlier, living 15 or 20 in an apartment.
Yeah.
They came in, they made all the money they could make during the apple season, and then they would be gone.
To spend all the money.
Spent it all, spent half of it, and took the rest home.
Oh my gosh, which was probably enough.
Yeah, it probably was. So yeah, that's kind of funny. That's the very limited Spanish. But yeah, so more community.
Yeah, it's more community for sure. Here, I think it's, I feel like it's a lot more freedom.
Okay. You mean,
not that there's no freedom over there.
Yeah, I was going to say, do you mean like financial, like we can pack up our car and go?
Yeah.
Is it due to the financial freedom? Like,
well, I don't know if financial, it depends on your situation, but yeah, I would say.
But I mean, is it because you have more resources here so you can afford to go do more things, or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, but also, over there, even if you were not, super financially stable, you could go with a group of people and just go to the river and just cook something under, with.
Okay, gotcha.
With,
a hibachi grill,
yeah,
or a little,
something.
Yeah. A hot rock,
and it was cheap.
Gotcha.
I mean, overall, you probably had to take a bus, but.
Did you guys own a car when you were in Colombia?
No.
Okay.
No.
So was there public transportation at all, buses or cabs or anything?
We had. Yeah.
Okay.
We had buses.
So if you wanted to travel somewhere, would you? I mean, were there car rentals? There were cars in the city?
I don't
right?
know back then, but nowadays we do. I mean,
no Uber.
Yeah, Uber is there.
There is now.
Hoover, and what else?
Uber. I don't know. I know one of the podcasts.
There's another one there. Yeah.
Is it what is the other one? Uber and it starts with an L, doesn't it? Well, the reason I said that is I listened to a podcast with a guy from Bolivia, and his mom calls it giant instead of giant.
Yeah, my mom used to say that too.
Giant, and also she says, call it Huber instead of Uber. Yeah, Huber.
Like there's an H there. Right?
Yeah, like there's an H. Okay, last thing here. One serious and one funny, and then we're all done. Did your perspective on any of these categories, life, religion, politics, change as a result of living in the United States? Do you think, what do you think, sorry, let me break this into 2 questions. What do you think you would be now if you had never left Colombia?
I would probably have, probably not married for sure,
Okay.
but definitely would probably have kids.
We talked about that cultural difference too, jumping back to that question.
Yeah.
Colombian TV and the ladies would dress all, it's very over-sexualized, right?
Yes.
And so that's different in the United States. I mean, we still do it in the United States.
That is true. That's a good point.
I remember you telling me about that, like the weather ladies are all wearing.
And the weather ladies, and if you look at the Hispanic channels, that's how they dress too.
Yeah, and even the soap operas and all that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And here
what are they
called?
Modest. What are they called?
Telenovelas.
Telenovelas.
Telenovelas. Yeah.
Is that like a television story?
Yeah.
Okay.
Basically.
Well, I had said if you were still in Colombia, what would you?
Yeah, I think I would probably have kids.
What would your life be like?
Probably a wife, probably working. Not on a professional for sure, because there's no way.
You'd have worked in a trade.
Yeah, there's no way
Okay.
I could afford going to school.
What is sorry for all the dumb questions.
Yeah.
Is there a trade that was a very common trade, or could it have been any trade just like here in the United States? Like you could have been an electrician, a plumber, a roofer,
Yeah, but those jobs don't usually pay well.
Okay.
I think they pay better here.
Okay.
And I mean, that's basically what my brothers do. A couple
Gotcha.
of my brothers.
So you would have probably been in the situation your
same
brothers
situation, yeah.
are. Do they share houses with your parents, or are they in their own, or?
Now they're on their own.
Okay.
Actually, yeah, they're on their own right now.
But-
It's just my parents.
But you're in your 40s. That meant it took them until their 40s or 50s to be on their own
I mean,
through their
Nah.
own fault, or because it's just that hard to get ahead.
probably a combination of both. I
Okay.
think some were more willing to take the risk and, hey, let's get a loan to build my house.
Okay.
He built the house himself. The other one, I mean, just kind of stay with my
It was
parents.
safe. It was safer.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and yeah, I mean, I think
Would
It
you
was
have
just
made it? Would you
easier.
have made it this far in your life? Would you have been alive, or would you have made a bad choice?
I think I would have been alive.
Okay.
Alive. I think that
And you
Up
think you
until
would have
I
had
was-
kids, but not
Yeah.
be married?
maybe not married.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think I would have a good life for sure.
Was that so? So being married is not a good life. No, I'm just
no,
kidding. You didn't say that.
I'll
He
make sure
didn't.
my wife doesn't.
He didn't
watch
mean
this.
that. He didn't mean that. I didn't want to use her name. He didn't mean that, Mama. He didn't mean that. No, but is it less common to stay married there? Or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I
So-
don't know why.
Yeah, I don't either.
I think it's a.
Is it a
I-
male-dominated society?
I think it just depends on how you were, how you were raised. Like,
Right.
I think that, since your parents were not married, then I guess I'm not getting married.
Gotcha.
Not that it can't change.
Right, understood.
Because I
It's just
got
what you
married.
see,
my
right.
parents were not married until they got here. Until they
I didn't
came to
know
the-
that.
Yeah, they got married here in the U.S. because my sister and my brother-in-law. So you guys are coming here and living together. You had to get married. So they came here. I think it might have been like a week after they came. They were already getting married.
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
I'm
my
lear-
sister, my brother-in-law, like, you guys have to, you've been living together for so many years. You guys have to get married. Okay.
So they were
So-
married here in the United
Yes.
States.
And
Does-
my brothers are actually, one of my brothers now, one of my older brothers is now married. My sister's married here.
is that marriage recognized in Colombia, or does it not matter? Like the fact that your parents are
That's
married?
a good point. I don't know.
You don't know.
I don't know.
So
I
are
mean,
they married there, but not here, or here, but
they're
not
married
there?
here, but not there.
Okay,
That's true. So
It's interesting.
Yeah. So I think my mom has her maiden name there.
that's funny.
Yeah.
That's funny. What about your view of religion? You're Catholic. Were you Catholic then?
So I'm not quite Catholic.
Not quite Catholic.
My wife is Catholic.
Oh, your wife. I'm sorry, I got that
yeah.
backwards. Okay.
Yes, and as I was growing up, I did I was baptized at the Catholic Church.
Okay.
I did my first communion.
Okay.
Um,
Okay. So I wasn't off. You
no,
had,
not really.
Okay.
I mean, my
okay.
wife thinks I'm Catholic because I did all those things.
Okay. Check
even
the
though
box,
I consider,
check the
even though
box,
I
check
don't
the box.
consider myself Catholic.
Well, I remember at one point you said you guys actually go to different
Yeah,
churches.
we go to like an evangelical church.
Yeah.
I mean, I do, and she goes to a Catholic
Yeah.
church, and we talk about how we kind of agree. She wanted to raise her
Right.
kids Catholics.
Are you more or less religious in America than you would have been if you had stayed in Colombia? Or
and
do you
more
think,
religious here.
yeah,
Yes, definitely.
because you have the opportunity, or because of your wife, or
because of the people that I ran into in my life, like my brother-in-law, my sister, they're very religious.
Okay.
And my wife is too.
so having the exposure to more
Yes,
religious
and
people.
so yeah, it brought me closer to God.
Yeah.
As I was saying before, like we kind of agree that like my wife would raise her kids Catholics, and the way I kind of approached it was like, as long as they have faith in God, we both believe in the same God, even
Yeah.
though it's like different religion.
Right.
And the faith is that really matters, not like
Yeah.
not the religion itself. I mean, the religion is important, but like
Yeah.
the faith, that kids know that God is above everybody,
Mhm.
above everything.
hmm
And I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
And they all go to the Catholic Church,
Mhm.
and then I go to meet my evangelical church. uh,
Do they ever
so,
ask you why?
they haven't asked.
That's funny.
Maybe they asked my wife,
Yeah.
and she's never told me why.
Yeah.
But like, sometimes I worry about this
Yeah.
because I don't want my kids to be like
Think
to
you're
think that
against what they're
yes,
doing. Yeah.
I don't think I would like that.
You know what?
But-
I think as a parent, that discussion will happen eventually.
Yeah.
And you'll say, we believe in the same thing. We're
And-
just, yeah.
And and also the fact that we kind of pray for our meals
Mhm.
so they know, like sometimes I lead the prayer
Yeah.
and they know that we're praying and
Yep.
they understand that it's not
Yeah.
like just because I go to a different
Yeah.
church
You're crossing your arms at the end of the
they know that we trying to have a relationship with God.
What about politics? Do you think, has your belief system changed? I mean, the idea that in Colombia the politics was, if possible, maybe even more corrupt than here at times, or more violent than here, or less. But here it's equally bad. I mean, we pretend that things are clean here, but they're not. I mean, they're very dirty here too. But do you think your views were shaped by being a United States citizen or being here more than being in Colombia?
Yeah, I think that definitely not in Colombia. I didn't really follow politics in Colombia.
Well, you were young too.
I was young.
To be fair,
and-
yeah.
and, I mean, I remember my mom and my dad kind of voting for.
Did they have elections
yes,
in
they do
Colombia?
have elections.
And were they ostensibly fair? I mean, they were open elections.
I think so.
Okay. I mean, it
there's-
wasn't
There's
like-
always controversy.
It wasn't
about
like Cuba
something.
where the only name on the ballot
Right.
was I mean, they had choice.
Yeah, correct. Yes.
Gotcha.
And actually, they have more than two parties.
Two major parties, yeah.
They have and sometimes there's other parties that kind of overtake the other one,
Mhm.
and sometimes they combine.
Was it a peaceful transfer of power, or was it a lot of military involvement and people
no,
fighting
it's
for?
peaceful.
Okay.
I mean, there were some. There are strikes mostly when there is some sort of controversy, like trying to raise the taxes in the middle of
Gotcha.
a pandemic, like
Gotcha.
something, crazy like that.
Gotcha.
But here in the U.S., just being an adult and being more involved in a little more in politics. Like I said, I think I hope I don't offend anybody, but I feel like being in politics, you have to be a little corrupted. I mean, that's the way I look
Yeah.
at it. It's just, and that's why people that want to be politicians, people that want to be in the government.
And even if you don't start there, you realize, my wife told me this when she was a congressional page in D.C. for a year. She said, even people that come there and want to do good
Exactly.
will go in, and then somebody will say, hey, if you want us to vote for that bill you're supporting, you need to come vote for this bill. And so she said, even people that come in there trying to do good, you can't get anything done unless you play ball. And,
And there was another. I remember I was dating this girl that told me about her dad's experience. He was a politician back in their country, and he wanted to do the good thing, like the right thing.
Yeah.
And they were trying to corrupt him, and he didn't want to, and he had to leave the country.
Yeah.
So because he did not want to be a corrupted politician.
Yeah, and also if you try to be the whistleblower, you end up
I mean, your
not
family
taking
pays for
another
it.
breath. Yeah.
I mean, it's so. And you know where I stand. I'm. There's a lot of things that I agree and disagree with Democrats and Republicans.
Yeah,
And
you're like what I would call like socially conservative with a lot of things. Like a lot of social issues, you're very traditional, but you're also very open-minded to allowing new ways of doing things and all that. And that's why we have great discussions, because I'm probably, I mean, for purposes of the podcast, I guess it doesn't matter, but I'm probably a little bit more conservative than you are about my overall beliefs, but I also, you've helped me think about things in different ways, including this topic, which is why I forget if you said it or I came up with the idea, but I was like, wow, that would be perfect to talk about this, because a lot of people don't get, it's all 6 minutes on the news, and it's all either Fox News on one side or CNN on the other. And so I just wanted to have like an honest conversation where people can be like, people who are like me and have never had the understanding of what it's like to move from your home country to another country and go, I'm going to learn a whole new culture. So I just thought it'd be fun.
And I feel like I had it easy though, because
You said that to me. And to be fair,
Yeah.
for the audience, Fernando even said, I don't feel like I'm the right person to talk about it because a lot of people go through a lot worse than I did to get here. Mine was easy, but it's still the process. It was hard enough. Now, something funny. Let's end with this, unless there's anything else you want to. I don't know if there's anything. Is there anything that I didn't ask you? Feel like it. I covered a lot of ground.
Yeah, we talk a lot about all kinds of things.
But and there's always a chance. Like if there's ever anything we feel like if we get questions or we want to come back and do a follow up, we always can.
Definitely.
But the thing I thought, unless you think of anything in the meantime, the thing I thought would be funny to end with is. Have you ever, being that devious person that you were when you were young, being that sneaky, good for nothing, kid that was mischievous when you were little, as an adult or even as a 15-year-old, how many times have you pretended to not understand English to get you out of a situation? Because we know the kids here at school do it. Did you ever do that? Did you ever say, "Oh, no hablo inglés"?
Yes, I did.
Yeah. When would you be most likely to do that?
I mean, I do it here when I don't want to talk to one of my students.
Okay.
I say, no hablo inglés.
But that's a joke because they
That's a
know you
joke,
speak
of course.
Spanish. Yeah. Like the
but-
kids will come, Mr. Giraldo, can I have a... No hablo inglés.
No hablo inglés. But, I mean, I think a lot of times when I was in school, in high school.
Like for school work or like if you were going to get in trouble?
When I was going to get in trouble.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think...
The kids do it to me all the time.
When I was in high school, it was... Like I think we were playing a hockey. And we were in the hockey unit. It was my first few days of here in the U.S. and in the PE class, and and it was like the teacher was trying to teach me how to hold the stick, the hockey stick.
Yeah.
And I got all wild and started playing really hard and high sticks. And I think I hit a couple kids and they started complaining about me.
Yeah.
And then she came over and she said, Fernando, you gotta
She just went back to
because I was like, cause she was mad at me. I was like, shoot, she's gonna get me in trouble already.
Yeah, and it was only your first couple days.
Yeah, it was the first few days.
You didn't need a phone call.
So she called somebody to translate.
Yeah, and then you're
I knew I was doing it.
Right.
I was doing something wrong, but I was so afraid that I was gonna get in trouble that day.
How about rules or laws because of your appearance or because of have you ever used your appearance or your ability to speak Spanish to like get out of something or trick something or
get out of something?
Yeah, like or have you ever been mistaken for another ethnicity? Has anybody ever looked at you and thought you were Italian or thought you were not realized you were Hispanic or?
Oh, you know what? That's actually a good question. When you first come to the U.S. and you're learning the language, I don't think you can tell the difference of somebody who speaks Spanish or both, because I've seen here at school like students that have been here for just a few weeks or months, and they're they see me and they're afraid to talk to me in their own language because they think that I only speak English.
Oh, okay.
And that used to happen to me too. So
you make the opposite mistake, which is assuming that just because someone's Hispanic looking, they don't speak Spanish.
Like if you've been in the country for just a few days and I start speaking English to you, and even though you look Hispanic, I don't know if you speak Spanish.
Oh, okay.
I don't know what it is.
It might be the opposite of racism, which is me looking at you and thinking, "Oh, he's got to speak Spanish. He's Hispanic."
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's like I remember not just seeing people that look Latinos, but I heard them speak English, so I would not talk to them because maybe they didn't speak Spanish.
And a funny side thing to that, we've talked about how words mean different things, like you were saying earlier, in different countries. So some of the kids here will say something that in Mexico means one thing, but in, it's slightly different dialects of Spanish. So, and so there's that whole deal too, is it's like your Spanish may be slightly different or their Spanish may be slightly, but it's close enough though, right?
It is close enough. I mean, there's certain things that we were just having a conversation with a couple of students, and they were asking me a question. They're like, have you eaten this? What was it? This is something like, I don't remember what it was. It was like a cornbread thingy. It's like cornbread. And I was like, what is that?
You say it in Spanish?
Yeah, she said it in Spanish.
Say it in Spanish.
Oh, so I call it like chocolo, like envuelto de chocolo, which is it's it's basically cornbread wrapped up in like in leaves, and like usually they are, I think they're usually done in plantain leaves. Okay. They're wrapped up in plantain leaves. They probably not wrapped up in plantain leaves here.
Plantains at home is like a big banana.
A big banana.
Less sweet.
Yeah. Well, there's a sweet one and there's a.
Oh, okay.
But
Fernando brings one in his lunch almost every day.
Oh, almost. I love them. And I was like, what is that? And she said, when she started explaining, it's the cornbread type of. Oh, I know. Yeah. So, it's like. There's a difference in that. Like it's the same food, but a different.
I bet that happens in English too. Like,
I know.
It's not as big, but I was just thinking like somebody from Pittsburgh will call like a Coca-Cola, they'll call it pop. Oh yeah, pop. Or like in the Northeast, they'll call a grinder. Do you know what a grinder is? Do you know what a grinder is?
A what?
A grinder. It's a food. Do you know what a grinder is?
I don't think I know what it is.
So a grinder is a sub.
Oh.
Okay, and some places like Philadelphia, they call it a hero sandwich. But a sub, a grinder, and a hero are all the same. They're a sub. But it depends on where you are in the country what you call it. So you could say that to somebody that, like, to me, it's soda. But to my wife, it's pop because she grew up in Pittsburgh. So it's like, hey, we're going to go to the store and get some pop.
It's the same idea in Latin America. Like, they have...
Regional.
Yeah. And even within the country, sometimes they call things differently.
Any other times that you've used Hispanic to your advantage? Any other times where you've gotten out of something, or I have a funny story that I would like to tell about you.
Okay, about me.
About you, yeah.
Don't reveal my secrets.
While you think if there's anything else. A few years back, we had a staff development teacher here at Neosville.
Oh my gosh!
Who you already know the story.
Yes, I do.
And she was not abrasive, but she was loud, and we kind of just took an instant sort of, we don't want to deal with her. And so the first day we're in a meeting with her during pre-service week, and all of our whole team, and our team has always been. We love each other. Like, our team is the best team.
Yes, I agree.
And we sat in this room, and she came in, and she's like, okay, let me lead you. And she's got way too much energy. We're all laid back on our team, and she's just, okay, we're gonna, and we're okay. And she's like, let me send this email out to everybody. Let me get each of your names. So when I go around the room, you just tell me your last name. And so she starts, and she gets, like a couple easy ones, Smith, Jones, whatever, the easy ones. She gets to me, and mine is pretty long. It's, Kraushaar, 9 letters, and it doesn't spell like it sounds. Yeah. And then she gets to you. And, yours, you don't mind me spelling it, right?
No.
Giraldo.
Correct.
Okay, Giraldo. But instead of saying it in a way that she had a chance of spelling it, she's like, and what's your last name?
I feel bad.
And you were like, please, because I can't even approach the accent. But could you please say it the way you said it?
Giraldo.
And she's like, okay, she was having trouble with names like Smith, spelling.
Yeah, she was really having trouble.
She was really having trouble spelling.
Maybe she was just like nervous. I don't know.
Maybe. But she was, or something like that. She was having trouble spelling Johnson, for example. And then she gets to Giraldo.
Oh my God.
And she was like, is that an H? And he's like, and you didn't help.
No, Giraldo.
No, and you didn't say what it was.
I wasn't helping.
You weren't helping. She was like, you said, no, it's Giraldo. And she's like, J, what? And it was, the rest of us were,
I think at some point, didn't you turn around and start laughing?
I had to turn around and face away because I knew what you were doing. And then eventually somebody helped her, but it was almost like you didn't understand why she couldn't get it, and you were just saying it louder on purpose.
Yeah.
And no, Giraldo, and she was clueless. So it was
Oh my God.
it was one of the best things. And finally, we helped her get it, and she never knew the better. She never knew that.
She had,
But it was just the rest of us were sitting there
my
dying,
gosh.
and
I mean,
we
one of the many things we do here.
we
to
do.
survive.
We have a ton of fun. Fernando, I thank you for taking this much time away from your family. For anybody, is there anything you wanted to add before we leave? Anything?
No, I mean, thank you for having me. I think it was a great experience to talk about so many things, about my life and how my whole process of coming here to the U.S. and all my challenges and the goals that I have achieved. I think is cool. And if people have questions about anything, I'm okay. You know,
they can. Well, they can send an email or drop a comment. The email address for our podcast is curiousmindstalk@gmail.com. So you can send an email to curiousmindstalk, all one word, at gmail, or just drop it in the comments under this video, and we can do a follow-up. We don't even have to do a long form. We can do like a 5-minute question and answer video and follow it up if people have questions about it or if people are curious about it. We're just building our audience, so anybody, hopefully Fernando will spread this to family and friends that he might want to see it. And then also, I'll send you a copy of the file. What a great thing to keep. Your kids can look at it in 30 years or something.
They'll have fun watching.
It'd be fun. And so here's the fun part is if you have comments, please put them in there. Ring the bell, subscribe to the podcast, do whatever you want to do. But most importantly, spread the word. I think we have like 30 subscribers, and I'd love to get more. I love this interview format. I feel like you can really learn a lot, and I'm at a place in my life where I like to learn. So thanks for sharing so much of your personal life with us, and we'll get you out of here so you can get home to your kiddos, all 17 of them.
It's all right. I'm going to be sleeping on the couch. At least I have a place to sleep.
Well, but at least you can pick up dinner on your way home.
That's
there
true.
You go.
she's cooking, I think.
Okay,
maybe.
There you go.
Or maybe I have to go home and cook.
I don't know. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. This was episode 4, and we will see you next month with another episode. Thank you, Fernando. Everybody, have a good night.